Okay,
Just, Jerry, is recording on?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, thank you. So I now call this meeting of the Montgomery County Board of Elections to order. It is Monday, February 3rd, and we are meeting in person today. I want to start by thanking our staff for the new audiovisual equipment today. The board is now proud owners of an OWL system. And if our video looks different from what it was before, that is the reason. And what that means is that the camera may focus on us when we speak, and without our having to do anything, without our having to mute, without our having to it is going to freeze on occasion. I'm not quite sure why, but we're going to get used to it. But
It hasn't happened during testing, so.
But we are, what we're happy about is that we are no longer in the situation where we have to, one person speaks, everyone else mutes, and then in order to speak, you have to mute, or else we have that terrible echo. So we will test it out today, but that is, and I'm happy that we're all here in person, which I will explain when we get to the board president's remarks. So for starters, we have to convene as the Board of Canvassers. So I'm calling the meeting of the Board of Canvassers to order. We have a quorum present. All the board members are here except for Ami Hober, who is feeling under the weather and may join us remotely at some point. But Boris, I turn it over to you.
Thank you. Just very briefly, this is the part of the agenda that the staff presents to the board for consideration and rejection, untimely received mail-in ballots for the last election cycle. We have 55 ballots to present today. 53 of them are Yokawas and 2 are domestic ballots. When it comes to Yokawas, we have late sent, late received 3, timely sent but late received is 42, and we have 8 that we categorize as uncertain because there is no date stamp on the country of origin where the ballot was sent, but ballot was received untimely, well past the elections. When it comes to the domestic, we have 1 that was sent late and received late, and 1 that was sent timely but received late.
So we are roughly 60 days post-election and probably 50 days post the deadline for receiving them.
That's correct.
And still getting, particularly from overseas, we're still getting ballots.
We are still getting ballots, and I believe that this is nothing unusual, especially in Montgomery County case due to the high volume of votes by mail and especially high volume of Yokawa overseas voters. So this point of the agenda is quite frequent on the board's meetings.
Yes, and I didn't mean to suggest that it was unusual, but since we did just recently get questions about why is it that Maryland allows ballots to arrive 10 days after Election Day, if they are postmarked by Election Day, apparently it's because a lot of ballots arrive later, and in fact, even later than the 10 days, but we don't accept them after the 10 days. So, okay, is there a motion concerning these ballots?
Mr. President.
Diane Dillon.
Yes, I move we reject these ballots for purpose of being untimely.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Margie Delaro. All those in favor, raise your hand. It is unanimous. Okay, so I will now adjourn the Board of Canvassers and we'll declare the Board of Elections meeting to be commenced. We have a quorum present. We have 6 board members present. I'm going to start with the board president's remarks. Let me start by saying that it's great to be here in person today. We are here in person because we just completed a luncheon in honor of our amazing staff for all of their work on the 2024 election. We also, I want to express public thanks to former Congressman John Sarbanes and former Congresswoman Connie Morella, who came and spoke to express their personal thank yous to our staff for their important work with the election. And I want to take this opportunity to thank publicly all of the board members and the staff for a well-run election in 2024. And we were very, all 7 board members participated in putting this event together, and we are all very appreciative of our staff's work. I also wanted, for those of you who have not yet read Maryland Matters today, Josh Kurtz of Maryland Matters has announced that he's leaving Maryland Matters, and I believe it's a matter of about 10 days from now. And he was the founder of Maryland Matters and is walking away from that, and want to wish him best wishes in his endeavor. I'm sure that Maryland Matters will continue to be an important news source for what's happening across the state for a whole variety of things. And my last congratulations, which Boris is about to announce in his director's report, is that we have a new vote by mail, is her title coordinator? Manager, a new vote by mail manager. And that is the Michael Jordan of ballot canvas, or at least that's what I call him, Michelle Gonda. And Michelle, I know, I didn't plan for the round of applause, but what I was going to say is, I know that the entire board would like to congratulate you, and we're happy
Thank you.
to see that happen. I'm sure that will not stop you from continuing to tell us what to do when necessary. So thank you for that. Okay, I think those are all of the comments that I have. Are there any other board members who would like to make comments at this point? Okay, are there any
Yes,
additional changes?
David
Oh,
asked
Ami is
me.
here.
I joined you. I'm sorry, I am late. And again, I apologize for last weekend, but there wasn't anything I could do about it.
Okay, no worries, Ami. And I did give your regrets to the staff today, and I did tell them that in the interest of public health, you were necessarily absent from our lunch today, but I think they know how much you appreciate them, and glad to have you as part of this meeting. Any other comments? Okay, any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, any disclosure of campaign contributions or attendance at fundraisers? Okay, I don't see any of those. So now we're ready for public comments. Lisa, do we have anyone who has signed up for public comments?
Other than well, Fletcher provided comments in advance to be circulated.
So was Mr. Fletcher's comments intended to be something he was going to discuss in person or only in writing? Or do we know?
I don't know. It wasn't clear.
Okay, because I do not see him on the meeting, which I think just means that obviously we've received his comments. And I think I'm going to ask Boris to kind of summarize and comment on them, and then we can move on from there. Do we have anybody else who?
No one has asked to speak to the board in advance.
Okay. Boris, please go ahead and.
Okay, so very briefly, Mr. Fletcher comments will be posted on our website under documents for today's board meeting, as we usually do for every public comments that we receive in writing. When it comes to Mr. Fletcher's comments, they have two segments. The first one is the extended invitation to the Montgomery County board members to address a rally in Annapolis on February 25th. It's National Day of Action, Secure the Vote. Maryland and United Sovereign Citizens are hosting this rally, and the invitation was forwarded in the form of a flyer that is embedded in the comments itself. The second copy, the second segment relates to the list maintenance and accuracy of voter rolls, and Mr. Fletcher's data set that he provided earlier with the names of deceased individuals in Montgomery County, which per that data provided by Mr. Fletcher, not verified by staff yet, are still on the voter rolls. I have to say very briefly in regards to this comment that the list was forwarded to the State Board of Elections, that we are working with the state to receive clearance and instruction on the process that will be implemented not only in Montgomery County, but across all 24 jurisdictions in the state of Maryland, in case of any list of deceased individuals received that includes links to the obituaries published at the funeral homes or the newspapers. So this request that we received to look at the names, as I said, it's pending states review and states clearance of procedure that will be applied going forward. So again, we are top-down state. We operate under State Board of Elections rules. We are the largest jurisdiction, yet we are just another of 24 jurisdictions, so the same rules apply to us. I'm also confident that the number of names that are on the list that Mr. Fletcher provided, I don't know from the top of my head, but I'm confident that we will actually inactivate or even cancel some of those names in our regular process of list maintenance. As board might know, right after the elections, there are a sequence of events that we have to, sequence of tasks that we have to undertake in order to process first all the provisional ballots that were need to look back at the documents, attach them to the voter records. Then we tackle all the online voter registration, new voter registration updates that were received from the day when voter registration was closed 3 weeks before the election day until it reopens. And only then we tackle bounced, so-called bounced return mail, including sample ballots that were undeliverable or that we sometimes receive with the word deceased on it, not longer on this address or whatever. There is a logic for the sequencing of these steps. For example, if you have moved and did not provide your new address with us before the voter registration closed, that means we sent a sample ballot to your old address. But you might have updated your voter address in that period and your application is sitting on our backlog. We do not jump and send you a notification letter or inactivate you based on your sample ballot until we verify that you have not updated your registration in meanwhile. Because one of the actions would be redundant and would just cause additional confusion and additional work. So there's a logic in the sequence of the events. I believe, Sandy, I might be wrong, like 36,000, that's what we backlog that we were looking at the post-election when the voter registration opened. Obviously, provisional ballots, we had 27,000. I believe that we had 25,000 return pieces of mail, plus all the ERIC data that has been coming ever since. So this is our non-election year. This is our regular everyday Tuesday or Monday in the office. So we will continue to click. I'm not sure if all the names will be addressed. As I said, that our list of Michael Fletcher's list, but we believe some of them. Bottom line is, we will sit and wait pattern till we get the clearance from the state how to proceed processing of his request.
So before I call on Alex, let me just see if I can summarize what I think we just heard, which is that we have a sequence that we go through after every election to update our voter rolls. And that the plan is to follow that sequence, which includes the returns of the sample ballots and the changes that are made at early voting and election day and along the way. And also to address Mr. Fletcher's submission after that. But after we get notice from the state as to how to address that so that we are addressing it in a similar fashion to other parts of the state.
Just a small caveat, in case of when we receive a notification that someone has passed away, whether we receive it through DHMH, Department of Mental Health and Hygiene, or we get a death certificate from someone, we can act on that immediately. So when we get the clearance from the state, we will be able to address that list immediately. However, what I'm trying to say, we might remove some of the names from that list even before the clearance comes in as a part of our regular list maintenance process that follows certain sequences and steps.
Okay, thank you, Alex Henson.
Boris, so reading Mr. Fletcher's comments here that he had submitted, is it accurate to say that while the state board does not approve printouts from legacy.com and tribute.com, but if you have an archived a link to the funeral home website or to the obituary from the newspaper, and if you follow that link, then that's acceptable proof of death?
So I hope it won't come as a surprise to you that that's exactly one of the questions we ask the state. Because the question is up-to-date obituaries and archived obituaries. And whether being able to find obituary that was originally published on Washington Post, that's searchable through the Washington Post website, but located at the legacy.com, does it constitute inappropriate location of obituary? So again, this is typical prime example of guidance that we need from the state. Kevin might chime on this one.
Yes.
So
Kevin Karpinski. So Alex, I've reached out to Dan Coburn, who's the Assistant Attorney General. I spoke to Dan about the fact that some of these issues seem to be unclear, that everyone has the same ultimate goal, which is the rolls are clean and they're accurate, they're up to date. But every jurisdiction should be doing the same thing and with the same procedures in place. Many, many years ago, it was the state board's position that legacy and other web-based obituaries were not a reliable source for beginning inactivation processes under the NDRA. They are taking a look at that. In fact, I think they're having a meeting this week to talk about some of the processes that are in place. And then they're going to go ahead and send out updated procedures that they want every local board to follow.
Okay.
Let me just add to that. I'll call you in a second. David Naiman, that when my mom passed away in September, the only published obituary that we submitted was for the Washington Post, and the only place to find it is on legacy.com. Because if you go to the Washington Post, as Boris described, and you search for it, and this is a recent one, this is not, from years ago, that's where it sends you. Now, legacy.com has some entries that do not have a newspaper at the top that shows you that it came from a newspaper, but it also has many that do say that. They say, like, it literally has the Washington Post masthead at the top on legacy.com. So hopefully the state board will sort all of that out. I'm definitely in agreement that we should only rely on reliable sources, but we can't necessarily use the description of what was reliable from a few years ago because the world evolves pretty quickly these days. So hopefully they will get that figured out. Alex and then Diane.
David, if I could just add, I think he mentioned the case of Charles Krauthammer, who was very well known. It may be that there was no formal obituary published for him, but there would have been articles in the Washington Post and others about his death. what would they do with something like that? If there really was no official obituary, but it was a famous person who was reported in the news sections of the paper as having died, would that be acceptable?
I don't know the
That
answer.
hasn't been
I don't know.
addressed.
I don't know.
what the answer is. I mean, I would tell you, I don't think that there's ever been, please correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think the local boards have ever been given direction that they are to act on that type of information. So, but it's a good point. There obviously, as David's pointed out, you know, the technology changes, it gets, you know, what was unreliable 5 years ago, may be entirely reliable now. So I think they're taking a look at all of those procedures and seeing what can be done moving forward.
We also have to be cautious because while I'm not sure how many Charles Krauthammers there are in the United States, that we have to make sure that we're identifying, you know, the very same person with reliable information. And there are now so many news sources out there with varying degrees of reliability. And if we took a vote at the board table as to what's reliable, I'm sure we'd have disagreements as to what's reliable. And so obviously, before we take somebody off the rolls, we want to make absolutely sure that we're taking someone off the rolls who should be taken off the rolls. I will just point out, since you brought up Mr. Krauthammer, that like my friend Roscoe Nix, Mr. Krauthammer passed away in Georgia. If Georgia had remained a member of ERIC, we would have gotten a notification that he had passed away. We would have removed him from the rolls on that basis, as we would have for Roscoe Nix if Georgia had been part of ERIC. Instead, I believe in order to remove him from the rolls as it currently stands, we would need either a death certificate or we would need the state board to tell us that a particular source is considered to be a reliable source.
That's correct.
May I just add one, from the staff point of view, media outlets that are paper, that are electronic, TV, radio, and that's web. We are talking about wealth of different outlets that could publish a note or article of someone passing away. We do not have capacity to sift through all of that on weekly basis to capture everything that could be mentioned either on some local neighborhood website or big one like Washington Post. So we are talking about operational limitations here as well. We are a big county with many outlets, many neighborhoods.
Okay, Diane Dillon.
Yeah, I want to thank you. My question was pretty much answered with what David said. It was originally to Mr. Karpinski. Why would they not consider thinking of not considering legacy as acceptable, but
So Kevin Karpinski, I think they're rethinking what is considered a reliable source.
yeah.
And so what I'm going back is 10 years ago, close to 10 years ago. And so obviously they're revisiting because, as David pointed out with his mother, you know, you go to legacy, that's where you would find a obituary that began on the Washington Post. So I think they're taking a look at what they view to be reliable, and that's gonna require the board and the administrator to come up with probably new guidelines.
Well, we also have lots of changes in the media world. I saw today that the Newark Star Ledger is no longer going to produce a paper version of the Newark Star Ledger. If they only go online, they may pretty soon get to the point like the Washington Post where they say, well, why do we need to have our own separate obituaries when we have legacy?
Right.
I don't know whether the Newark Star Ledger uses legacy now. And I don't know whether there's a distinction. I don't know whether I can go to legacy and put someone on legacy or whether you have to be, you know, a funeral director or a newspaper or a state health official. I mean, I don't know what it takes to get somebody to be on legacy. I think that was part of what the state was thinking about when they said that they didn't want web sources to be automatically accepted because it may be too easy for someone to say, oh, yes, that's my cousin and, you know, whatever. You know, you want it to be confirmed factual information, but you also don't want it to be a hard and fast rule so that when we do have confirmed factual information, that it's ruled out because it happens to be online. Anything else about, Mr. Fletcher's public comment? We still managed to take up quite a bit of time even when he's not here. So,
Good
and-
topic.
anyway, okay, any other public comments? I gather we have nobody else signed up.
No, Mr. President.
Okay, so we're on to the election director's report. Boris.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. The non-election season, board staff activities are well regulated, and our volume will keep us busy through this year, definitely, to tackle the backlogs and prepare for the next cycle. So all the agenda and the materials were published timely and shared with the board. The materials that are shared with the board and published on our website include this report, of course, budget expenditures, website update, statistic outreach, and the presentation. The first section refers to the voter registration statistics for the month of January. Again, available on our website and shared with the board. You good?
Go.
In my report, I provide both the numbers and the graph that indicates distribution of registered active voters between the major parties, unaffiliated, and others. When it comes to the personnel, as David mentioned in his opening, we concluded the process of hiring a vote by mail program manager. Ms. Michelle Gonda joined us. She was promoted to that position. We have completed the reclassification process for the recruitment and training manager too. That posting will be advertised soon. Budget and finance position remains vacant for time being, just like a deputy director, with Lisa covering all the budget and finance items for the time being. Temporary positions, again, we are reducing that number as we go along. However, our backlog and our legally required time frame to finish certain tasks force us to have a very limited, small number of temporary employees still with us in the building to help us through that process. We shared the budget document with the board, and we completed the second quarter analysis of our expenditures and projected expenditures for the rest of the fiscal year. We work with the Office of Management and Budget and Shared Services, and the conclusion of the second quarter analysis was that Board of Elections should be in a surplus by the end of this fiscal year. When it comes to the section activities, something that's on schedule, that's done every other year, last week in December we do it always, is removal of inactive voters or cancellation of inactive voters who didn't vote in 2 consecutive federal cycle general elections. This time around, that activity led to cancellation of over 34,000 voters in the last week of December. This number is on level for the previous cancellation process. We always oscillate between 32 to 36,000 inactive voters that are removed to the cancel category on the in December following the federal general election. So when it comes to voter registration, I already spoke very briefly about 27,000 provisional applications that we have to attach to every record as for record keeping and reference for the future. Our backlog of 36,706 online voter registration, new registrants, and the updates that we received since the voter registration was closed until it all reopened after the election. Again, these are not the only data sources that we get for the list maintenance. We still keep receiving ERIC, jury commission, any data from the state that they find to send to us. The staff has sent letters to all the voters who were registered with Libertarian Party and No Labels Party. notifying that those two parties lost the status of recognized parties in the state of Maryland as of the last day of the 2024. In the letter, we informed them of that and gave them option to let us know which party they would like to affiliate going forward. I think that it was 2,583 libertarian and 1,303 no labels voters. Something that the vote by mail section is working on is preparing archiving over 165,000 envelopes that we received mailing ballots in. That's a conversation of the space. And I believe we will hear from Kevin about our ability to start shredding, hopefully to previous elections to open space for those activities. We are legally mandated to retain certain documents for 22 months, and envelopes that we receive mailing ballots in them absolutely qualify. When it comes to training section, IT section, post-election maintenance, all our equipment has to go through the post-election maintenance. This is the task performed by the both permanent staff and a small number of temporary employees that stay with us. Our IT manager, Janet Ross, continues working with the TABS Technology Enterprise Business Solutions on further development of election resource management system, and it's a system that we use to recruit, assign training, and assign polling places for election judges, volunteers, basically from onboarding to throughout the whole process in an election cycle. Something that will be in the focus for the quite few months to come. It's our county is working towards to meet DOJ requirements, ADA requirements of accessibility of the websites. That will cause multiple changes on our website itself. I know that board members might have noticed that we really didn't change it a lot, if at all, now, because we are waiting for the outcome of those conversations, so we see what needs to be done. Certain changes will need to be implemented in terms of documents, whether we can use PDFs, whether we can use graphs in the documents before we publish them, or we will have to use to publish two types of documents, one with graphs, one without the graphs, so people with visual disabilities could actually use the system to read them, because apparently graphs cannot be read. You'll have requirements for the recordings, for the subtitles of every event that is on our archives. So, as I said, Janet is going through these meetings. It will take some time to figure out what needs to be done. We are not the only agency; it's county-wide, and I believe it will be a statewide process as well. We don't know exactly yet how much we will need to change our documents and the way we publish things before we figure out everything, but we will keep board apprised of it.
Do we have a sense of the time frame for that?
But April?
We have to be compliant by April 24th, 2026, but it's a lot of work.
Right, oh, no, and that's kind of late considering the election calendar in 2026.
Yeah, that's why we're working with TEPS right now. We'll be attending trainings through April, every Wednesday through April. We're going through trainings, and their thing is, let's get it done
April
now.
of 25,
Yes, of
Okay.
this year.
right.
For it. The county's trying to push everybody to get accessible now, so we're already there when April 2026 comes, that we're already assessing.
And can you just clarify from the very beginning, that directive came from?
It's DOJ.
It's their new title to ADA.
Thanks.
So the standards have changed for accessibility.
Yes.
It's not like we've been not
No, no.
compliant
No,
for
this is-
years, yeah.
Yeah, they've gotten a little stricter.
County would not let, not being compliant, any agency, that's
Do we have a communication from the Department of Justice? Because it's a big place, and I'd be curious to see, yeah, what the, or is that something that would have gone to the county government?
that will go to the county. We just,
Yeah.
The TEPS department don't have it.
we are part
Probably
of the
went to the
county.
county attorney.
Yeah.
Well, if we could get either the communication from the Department of Justice or a summary of it, I think that would be, I mean, because I don't know whether we're talking about a page or two or hundreds of pages, but I think it would be useful to get a sense as to what they're talking about. And I realize that we're not necessarily the target of their effort. It's the whole county government. But we have scheduling concerns that a lot of the county government may not have, in that, you know, we obviously, since, as Janet said, it's a lot of work, we'd rather have a lot of work when we have time and not a lot of work when we are in our peak of election season and are very much otherwise occupied.
The TEPS understand, they know our flow, because when we're in elections, we actually give our website to the TEPS team and say, when you give me updates, I'm sending them to them, do this for me, do this for me.
Okay,
So they know our flow, and that's
Good.
why they're trying to get it done this year.
good. Well, but I think we would also like to get
Yeah.
a sense as to what the federal government is requiring. And I would just say from my perspective that, you know, I understand that graphs may be hard for some people to read, and I have no problem with our having information both in graph form and in non-graph form. I would have a problem with not having it in graph form. You know, because I think a lot of times, such as Boris's famous graph of the returns of mail-in ballots, that the graph is as powerful or more so than the data.
I just, for the clarity, I'm not neck deep in the details of the requirements and everything. I know that I understood graph requirement from one of the initial conversations. There are many more. And I'm really not in position to go into details, but we do actually work with the TEPS, just like any other agency in the county to get this through.
Okay, thank you.
Just to conclude with the operation sections, shredding of unused ballots, shredding of the materials that we can shred, those that are not subject of any stay issued by the courts. Just small caveat here, we already started communicating with a number of private locations that we use as polling places. Already started talking to them about 2026, giving them timeframes, what would be required. It's a standard process. We'd like to send a couple of reminders in the non-election year, just to make sure that those premises that we would need back in 2026 are actually available, not rented for certain festivals, ceremonies, or parties in that time. When it comes to recruitment and the election support, we did award Pick a Pal, 2 winners from that's our an exercise where we let new election judges to bring a pal who hasn't served before. We picked 2 winners. They get tickets to the cinema and a candy, but I think more of a public recognition. I think we had 2 young election judges who are juniors or seniors in a high school who won it this time. We keep ongoing communication with anyone who expressed interest to serve, to volunteer as election judge. We are catching up, and anyone who checked that box on their voter registration update, we are communicating, sending them either letters, emails, trying to keep them engaged, hoping that they will step forward and for the 2026 and serve with us. I think this year we sent already over 3,300 communication pieces. So we will keep working on. Last item, when it comes to meetings, annual Maryland Association of Election Officials conference is in May 4th to May 9th. As usual, it will be in Ocean City. Biannual conference for the board members and board attorneys will be embedded in that span of time. I still don't know exact 1 or 2 days that would be biannual, which is mandatory attendance. But the moment I learn more, I'll be glad to share with the board.
Okay, questions for Boris, Daniel Crum.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Boris, for the comprehensive update and review. Under voter services, if I hear you correctly, you said approximately 36,000 voters that were just
Remote?
yeah.
So exact number is 34,162, and that is equivalent roughly plus minus few thousand that we cancel every December following federal election.
So can you talk about, is there like a process of notification just to make sure?
So, absolutely, these are inactive voters, which means that they were inactivated based on our failed attempt to communicate with them, recognizing that a letter or piece of election mail bounced back. We send them a note, but if the note is not answered within 2 weeks or any time after that date until the federal election day after that, they remain inactive. I think the national NVRA requires any voter in inactive status who maintains that status for 2 consecutive federal general elections without voting or updating their voter registration to be canceled following that election. And that's what we do. Again, I know that some jurisdictions or some states might pick any date in a year when they do it. We do it traditionally last week, the last month of the year when the federal elections are held. So last week in December is the date that system runs the process, and all those inactive voters who didn't vote for 2 consecutive federal elections are canceled.
So in other words, we're talking about 8 years of not participating.
I know. We are talking for,
When you say federal, that's the
Yeah,
presidential
presidential.
cycle or is both?
but you have a federal offices in the gubernatorial election as well.
Ah,
Presidential and.
okay.
The
Ah,
moment you have a federal office on the ballot,
so in other words, 4 years without participating.
after inactivation. So you can be active voter without ever voting in your life. And we will never remove you from our rolls as long as we don't get any mail bounced back from your address.
Okay, there you go.
So you can be active
Mhm.
and never vote.
Okay.
If we receive a mail saying this person does not reside in this address anymore,
Sure.
we follow with another piece of mail saying, please, can you confirm or provide a new address? If we don't hear it from you, you go into an active status after 2 weeks.
Okay.
And if you don't vote for the 2 elections after that,
Mhm.
you'll get canceled.
That's very clear. Thank
You
you.
still have right to re-register whenever you want when you're back in the state.
Okay.
So that's,
I just want to
it's not for life.
Sure,
It's
sure, sure. Okay, thank you for
Not a
that.
ban.
Any other questions for Boris about his report? Okay, thank you, Boris. Seeing none, we move to the board attorney's report. Kevin.
Thank you, David. So, as Forrest indicated, we have litigation holds on 2020 and 2022 election materials. And both of those are challenges to the results in Maryland. The 2020 case has been decided by the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit. They found that the plaintiffs lacked standing to bring the suit, and therefore they affirmed the United States District Court for the District of Maryland's judgment to dismiss the lawsuit. Unfortunately, in the last week, sorry, Mindy, they have filed a petition for in-bank review by the entire Fourth Circuit, which would require a polling of the Fourth Circuit, the entire members of the Fourth Circuit, to see whether they would wish to hear the case in bank. They are not going to do that, but they nevertheless are going to have to deny that request. So hopefully by spring, that case will have gone through the entire process and we can begin destroying the 2020 materials that could have been destroyed if not for the litigation hold 22 months after the election was certified.
Does that include the possibility of them filing for cert with the Supreme Court?
Yes,
And you're saying the hope is that by the spring, the Supreme Court will have decided whether to hear the case?
yes. Supreme Court generally likes to clear their docket before they recess in June.
Okay, so basically it sounds like we have a reasonable chance of resolution by June.
Yes. And I think the decision with regard to the 2022 election case will come out in the next 30 days. I listened to the argument Judge Niemeyer, Judge Wilkinson, and I think, I forget the district court judge that was hearing the case. They were not sympathetic to the argument that the person, that the group had standing to bring the suit. So I suspect they will again affirm what the district court did in terms of dismissing the case. And that case will probably, hopefully will be on the same track that by late spring, early summer, all of those cases will have resolved themselves. So that's where we are on that front. Next issue is, we do have municipal elections going on this year. As you may recall, Friendship Heights, we have a drop box there. They use a drop box for their municipal election. Morris has directed me to follow up to get an MOU in place for that drop box for their election this year.
So they use our Dropbox for their election.
Correct.
Small one. We are not
Small.
talking about the big ones that are utilized across the county for our election.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a very straightforward MOU that,
Do the other municipal elections also use our Dropbox?
well, Rockville uses their own. I mean, because they have.
Well, they have one at City Hall.
Yeah. And I don't know what
What about-
Gaithersburg does.
I was gonna ask what the.
In Tacoma Park? Tacoma Park is now no longer on an odd number of years basis, so I guess that's not really an issue.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Gaithersburg does.
We had no request from
I don't
Gatesburg.
think they have.
Okay,
Okay.
So we have, sorry, Kevin, we just have, for the general public, drop boxes that everyone can see is through the county. Those are states, commission drop boxes that we use in our place. We still have few small drop boxes that are utilized by some municipalities. In this case, it's Friendship Heights, just for their local election.
thank you.
And then trying to get ahead of the curve on the MOUs moving forward for 2026, staff's getting comments to me about what they want tweaked on the MOUs with the county and with the municipalities where we have MOUs like Gaithersburg, Tacoma Park for drop boxes, things of that nature. So we hope to get those finalized in the next 60 days.
Do our MOUs already include provisions for whether or not overnight storage of electioneering materials is allowed?
The MOUs for early voting sites do indicate that that is at the discretion of the host. We know Montgomery County has allowed it. Gaithersburg has never allowed it.
Right.
Sandy Spring has
Sometimes allowed it and
sometimes allowed it, sometimes not allowed it, so.
Right, so do we do an MOU with the rec department as well, or we only do MOUs with outside entities?
We do a MOU with the county because the rec department is not a legal entity that
Okay,
can enforce anything. It has to go through Montgomery County.
okay, and the MOU with Montgomery County still leaves it up to Montgomery County so that, for example, if the county executive were to decide he didn't want to allow it anymore, he could?
I have to go back and look, David. I'm not sure exactly what the language is with the counties, because the
Okay.
county's never been a problem.
Right, I understand. I'm just trying to anticipate. I want us to allow it wherever we can. As you know, it's very popular among those who are outside of our early voting centers on a daily basis for 8 days in a row.
Right.
And so particularly in the case of Montgomery County, where we know that the powers that be have allowed it, I'd be more comfortable if it's in the agreement.
Okay.
And not subject to any last minute changes.
It's a storage of campaign materials.
Right, right. Storage of campaign materials, and sometimes I don't know whether they allow them to store their, their folding table. I mean, it's whatever they've done. I'm not asking for anything new. I'm just asking for us to memorialize what they've done in the past, because I just want the agreements to reflect what they do.
And we send the campaigns a letter, if you recall.
Right.
Beforehand, indicating.
Yeah, you may
Where you can, you can't leave.
you may recall that there were still people who were pushing the envelope Apparently the laptop died and we are trying to get it set back up, and that is why we are off screen at the moment, and we'll be coming back soon.
Thank you for the information.
We need a brief break.
We are back on.
We're already.
Oh, back on, okay,
You know,
okay, so. And,
We're back on?
Yep.
yes, we are.
Okay, so David, I'll take a look at the storage issue. There always are some minor tweaks to the MOU with the county in a year where we have people, elected officials that are on the ballot, because we asked them to go ahead and cover up signage. For example, if it's the county executive that's on the ballot
Right,
and other county council members and things like that. So
right,
we'll,
okay.
we'll look into going ahead.
Okay.
and making those.
And you
tweaks.
could have, I didn't realize that we do that, but we do have a lot of signs at polling places as well, if there's been a renovation or,
Correct.
you know,
Okay,
okay,
we do that. We do that.
okay, great. Anything else from
That's
you?
it. Nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Are there any questions for Kevin? All right, so I believe that the next item on the agenda is the staff presentation on the 2024 election.
Okay,
And I look forward to seeing how our technology will capture it.
no pressure, gentlemen.
It ain't me, you're running this. I'm just giving you direction. Okay, go to your slideshow. Here,
You sure?
You didn't read it.
you gotta start going, escape and go back and share first. Now share. Go to Zoom and share.
It's okay. Okay, you're not gonna hear all of it.
Share your screen.
So everything that I know about the 2024 election, but we're afraid to ask. And a few things you didn't care to know.
this is gonna be the,
Satisfy your insatiable appetite.
No,
for data.
no, no,
this will be the condensed version.
no.
You wanna share?
I would say though that this is the,
Okay,
The appetite.
no, I'll tell you later my analogy.
we have, staff has prepared a presentation that, it's data heavy, it's charts heavy, it's topics heavy. It captures all the complexities of our work, every section and extent to which level each of our tasks or our work is interconnected and leads to, it has impact on the next step in the election process itself. The data is not the final, as the board would know, remember we certified late in November. December was a bit of a holidays and break for the staff, and we jumped on this in January. This data was a joint effort, as I said, of every section in the building. I have to especially emphasize Miss Anna Johnson, who was the recipient of all the data points that we were gathering through the building, trying to put them in one place, in one presentation, and bearing with my questioning of many numbers that were there and graphs, but that's, we call it every day in the office center, right?
Thank you, Anthony.
So this presentation is 145 slides long. I will not go through all the slides. I believe that slides will generate quite some interest among the staff, definitely. As we start looking into this data, we don't have all the answers yet for all the numbers that are presented or trends. I assume the same will go for the board and for the general public. Our intention is, as I said, was to emphasize the scope of our work, how its complexities, to emphasize certain areas where Montgomery County is potentially an outlier for the state of Maryland, and other areas where we might be pointing out as issues or developments that we believe should not be happening in Montgomery County, like historically high number of provisional ballots, but we were not exception. That was the case throughout the state. They were not the result of anything that was caused in the county, but it's example of those issues that have to be reviewed across the jurisdictions with my colleagues and the state administrator as a top view on all of this. So I'll try to go very briefly through this presentation. I'm pretty sure that going forward, we'll have many opportunities to reflect back on the numbers and graphs and discuss them maybe not necessarily in comprehensive manner today, but in the future meetings as well.
Boris, before you start,
Please.
would you prefer that if questions arise, that they be given to you as we go? Or would you prefer that I call on board members after you're done and give each person a few minutes to ask questions?
So I think it's better to ask questions as we go, so we don't go back and forth between the slides to make it easier. Sometimes the answer will be, give me 3 more slides and I'll arrive at that, because this is how the presentation is structured. I cannot promise that presentation was organized in a way that maybe makes sense to us, because we are in this every day. So if there are certain tweaks that you might want to see or ask, please let me know. But again, it follows the logic that we apply in our office every day. And sometimes it's not. So sometimes just like decide where you want to put certain
So I would just have board members, if you have questions as we go, to raise your hand, so that we can make sure that the record is clear as to who's asking, et cetera. Okay.
And the whole presentation is on our website.
It's on our website.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
have to apologize. There was one slide was mislabeled in the presentation that was sent to the board and published on the website, but then we will just change that. It's already changed. So there you go.
Okay.
Okay, key points. Again, I will not stop on every slide, but this one we have to reflect. Provisionals, and no provisionals. That's underlying tone of the elections in Montgomery County. And this was the name of the game across the state. Again, our numbers were historical, but so were historical in other counties. High same-day registration. We will get to this slide. You will see the spike that was never seen in the county before, ever since the same registration was introduced. If I remember properly, Jared Demaris, the state administrator, in his briefing to the Senate committee, he made a statement that number of same-day registrations in 2024 general election was higher than all the same-day registrations captured ever since the SDR was introduced in the state of Maryland. So in 1 year, we had more than since 2016, I believe, SDR was introduced. So again, our numbers might be high, but we are not outlier. It was across the state. What's important for Montgomery County that every voting method is appreciated. With few percentages up and down, our voters for the general election split 1/3 early voting, 1/3 election day, 1/3 vote by mail. Plus minus few percentages, but literally every method was appreciated, recognized, and utilized by our voters. Mail-in voting is here to stay. 192,000 requests, 165,000 return mail-in ballots, 50-something thousand more than the second highest county in the state. I think Baltimore County was 110,000, so we beat them 55,000. I think we had more. Our difference between us and Baltimore County is more than our county had combined. These are Montgomery County numbers. The same goes for the web deliveries. We hit over 35,500 web delivery requests for this election. So, and the last is the question, kind of rhetorical. No pattern, is it a pattern, right? Can we recognize the pattern in certain instances? And if there is no pattern, if it's literally across the board in the county, what can we deduct from that? Is it like Because it's easy if we can pinpoint the problem in certain locations, like why do people vote out of precinct an election day at the polling places that serve as early voting sites? That's the easy one. But if you have a certain behavior that's across the county, how do you address it in those instances? We expected high turnout, we expected more provisionals. I can tell the board that we did planning for 17,000 provisionals to process. We got 27,000, we were 40% off. Not the proudest moment, but I don't think anyone ever expected that number to go to 27,000. We literally went 20% upgrade up from 2022, but when we expect a high number of election workers, didn't necessarily work that well either. We did have lines at polling places. I'll talk a little bit more about voters' reaction to those lines. And of course, we had petitions in the last election cycle. We had actually 3. It takes a village. This was the theme that we kept going on. I apologize for anyone, any agency, any partner whose logo we might have missed, but this is like all the agencies that we cooperate, coordinate, work with in order to administer successful elections. We are talking from the state board to the local county agencies to the private facilities like Bender Jewish Center, Imam Center, RDSs, Roman Catholic RDSs of Washington, like libraries, rec department, anyone. So again, my apologies if we miss someone. We will certainly fix it going forward. But yeah, we kind of run out of space on this one as well.
The county government.
County government, we
missed-
split the county government in
No,
the
you
agency.
you missed the county logo on it.
Actually, so
That's our logo. That's our logo.
We'll put it on the record, Dan.
Gosh, Dan.
we were strategic in pointing and picking all the agencies that we work with.
Sure.
Police, fire and rescue, rec, homeland security, everyone is there. I think that will be the answer for.
I think by virtue of us being us, it's there.
I'll take it.
Okay.
24 elections at glance, from the highest high number to the lowest one number. We start with the number of precincts at 257, end up with number of petitions, which is 3. There were certain requests from the team members that emphasize number 0, which reflects number of days off we had for before the election. So
I wanna add an amendment as well, which is that since this says 2024 at a glance, you know, we did some of these things twice. We had 8 days of early voting twice.
that's correct.
We didn't have 13 canvassing sessions twice, but we did have, I believe we had 9 or 10 for the primary and 13 for the general. So, so this, if anything, this understates the workload. So anyway, we appreciate all those days of work.
Sorry, no, I'm just working with something. So very briefly, candidate filing data, ballot proofing, and the general ballot order that we had to place in order to envision possible use of in-person voting. When it comes to petitions, board was well informed through reporting in the process, county charter and 2 statewide petitions for the candidacies on the ballot. Turnout comparisons, as I said, we like to use this presentation as our own reflection. So whenever we need to pull the numbers fairly quickly, we know that in presentation should have it. You will see the fluctuation between primary and general, consistencies and inconsistencies, I would say, especially for the 2024 primaries, which was below, turnout was below any expectations at 25%. And I believe David made a reference for that in his speech, when he was talking about a lot of books. Many books were read during early voting by election judges. In the primary, that was not the case for the general election with 76% turnout. When it comes to the turnout among the counties, I don't think that anything is out or orderly when it comes to our county numbers. There are certain fluctuations within other counties that came as a bit of surprise to me, but that is other jurisdiction and other election director concern. Method of voting, this is what I was referring to, that evenly split between early voting election day and vote by mail. Keep in mind that 5% provisionals happen during early voting or election day, so each one of these will roughly hit 33%. There was a slight variation compared to the primary. Again, volume makes a difference, and this is certainly what happens. Early voting turnout, no need to talk a lot about this, just to recognize that I believe on 4 days of early voting for the general election, we had more ballots cast in one of those 4 days than whole 8 days of early voting for the primary. So there was nothing to compare in terms of volume.
In terms of the turnout by day, I would say, if I remember correctly, that the pattern we're talking about here, where the weekend days, it goes down and then it comes back up in the second week and goes higher at the end. That's a pretty consistent pattern over the time.
Absolutely.
So one of the things for us to think about, I know you're going to get later in the presentation to wait times and all that, and when people vote for early voting, is if there are ways to encourage people to move their voting from the last 2 days of early voting to the weekend.
We will touch upon that. We will touch upon our different modes of communication we had with the voters, hundreds of outreach events, and the
Yes.
same
Yes.
story that was repeated. Voter registration, as I said, these numbers are just for the references for any slides going forward. I apologize, but this type of presentation would require some back and forth between the slides in order to grasp everything. Active voter registration age. We wanted to introduce the curve because we followed age a lot through the presentation, and you will see that in many instances there's no pattern because the age curve reflects the age curve of the overall general registered voters. Active registered voters, these are pretty consistent numbers with smaller fluctuations, especially knowing the total number of registered voters has increased in the county, or at least is high for time being until we process all the incoming updates that we need to do. Monthly statistical report, I would just like to point out to the board, if you look at the December 2022 and December 24, you will see the dips in these slides. John, can I move this?
That's the process you were just describing to us that takes place at the end of December.
Every other December, last week, you will see this dip of 35,000. That's literally our list maintenance. ERIC records per year, you will see the huge fluctuation between 23 and 24. The number of states participating in ERIC, I think, went down from 34 to 19 plus DC or something like that. I also know that the state administrator has testified before the Senate that he's working on some kind of agreement with Virginia, because Virginia is our biggest data source when it comes to ERIC exchange between the states. We are a neighboring county. There's a lot of movement with population. So this is one item that we will be tracking and looking forward going in the next period. But number of ERIC files went down significantly compared to 2023.
So Boris, when you're talking about the Virginia example, they would not show up as ERIC records because Virginia is no longer part of ERIC. But this would be essentially an alternative to ERIC of doing our own agreement between two states instead of the multi-state agreement that is ERIC.
That's my understanding. I really don't know the technicalities or how far the process is, but I know that state administrator is looking into something like this because, again, Virginia, DC, we are talking about neighboring states, and we are talking about very mobile population. Later on, when we talk about SDR, you will see that there is an age issue when it comes to same-day registration. We are talking about 18 to 34 population, which is high mobility population compared to the higher, bit older population in the county. So we have to capture this data as much as we can. One system was working or not working, was it good, was not good. I think that we need something in place to make this data flow back between the states. This is just for the processed records, just to give you a sense of the volume that we tackle in a year and the changes that are made at the voter records. If you are talking about 100,000 changes that are made, you are like human. We try to do our best. If we misspell someone's name or misread digits, sometimes I apologize, but we work certainly to correct those.
Can I ask a question about
Yes.
that chart?
Yes,
So this chart includes 2018, 2022, and 2024. So we would be comparing 2024, which is a presidential year, to two gubernatorial years. And there's obviously a significant difference, almost 50% difference in the number of party changes between 2024 at 30,000 plus and 2018 and 2022 at roughly 20,000, you know, in one case 19, in one case 21. So I guess my question is 2020 an outlier? And is 2024 an outlier? Because it's, in some ways, it's comparing apples and oranges if you're comparing party changes in the presidential year to a party changes in the gubernatorial year.
absolutely, yes. So let's talk about 2020. 2020, we all agree it's outlier. We all hope it won't repeat again. We all understand that that majority of our voter registration changes comes through MVA, when people change their driving license, update anything. We know that in 2020, the process was frozen. I believe the governor issued a proclamation extending validity of driving license, so no one would go to MVA at that time. So comparing those numbers to anything would be definitely apples and oranges.
Okay.
So this is the best that we could do. You're absolutely right that gubernatorial election, the turnout is smaller than presidential, which triggers less data changed. But again, it's a reference.
Right.
For the next
And there's also a different motivation sometimes between who wants to change parties in a gubernatorial year and who wants to change parties in a presidential year. But in any event, because the first thing I noticed was the huge difference. It took a minute before I realized that we were not comparing presidential years to presidential years.
Just if you look at the last column, name changes.
Yeah.
In 2024, we had more than in 2018 and 2022 combined.
Right.
Yeah, let me just say, this is not that someone is changing their full name. Every time you go in and you change your middle name to your initial, we have to count that as a name change because we have to process it. I know it sounds like a small, but for us, it's a process record. So it's literally, someone has to go in and make sure that what you submitted reflects what's on the record. That's our legal requirement. Anytime someone gets married, change the name, legal change of the names, the figure from the courts, everything is there.
Okay, thank you.
Party changes, December 2020 to December 2024. This is for anyone who is interested to study a bit more. So sorry for the small print, but this is the best we can present on one slide. You will see 0 as the baseline. You will change this up, down, and above 0 when it comes to net changes. We are not talking here about the total number of people that became Democrats and those who left. We are talking about net changes per month.
So is it an accurate reflection of this to say that the line of, well, you have 3 different colored lines, a blue one, and I can't tell if that's red or if it's yellow, but it's orangish color, and then a gray one. And it looks like the blue one is sloped slightly down. The red one or orangish one is sloped up, especially starting and gets into positive territory right around the end of 2022.
That's correct.
And the others are also slightly sloped down.
That's correct.
So essentially, in the years that you're covering, the 4 years that you're covering, there has been, and again, the net change we're talking about is, you know, it's not a huge number. It's, you know, between 500 and 1,000.
Yeah.
But we're getting a slight increase in Republicans, a slight decrease in Democrats and other, which includes unaffiliated. But not enough of one that it changes the overall percentage, because the overall percentage of 59 and 14 and 25 is roughly the same.
I think that we are, if there are significant changes, but if you look at the net changes, what is the all that we have here, those will fall within 1 percentage point in each party. So, and you will see that there are certain spikes when certain changes are more prominent than others. But again, I think we just wanted to share it with everyone. Some people will find it more interesting than others.
Yeah.
For us, again, we don't follow the politics, we follow provisionals generated by people who vote wrong party ballot. In the
Right.
primaries, that's our concern, how to minimize those numbers.
And I was only trying to make sure I understood the
Fair
chart
enough.
correctly, because I'm, obviously, this would not be the place to discuss why people choose whatever political party they choose. But I just wanted to make sure I understood it, because it's a lot of material on this chart.
It is, and just to emphasize, we as a staff, politics, it's not our concern.
Right,
In 2022 primary, we had 690 provisional ballots from the voters who claimed they wanted to vote different party. We communicated with voters, we introduced many emails and everything. We cut that number in the higher turnout elections to 369, I believe. We cut it by half. So that's our concern. On staff level, we want less provisionals. Sorry if I'm
on the,
selfish.
no, on the member level, we want less provisionals too, fewer provisionals.
If you let me just mail in ballots, I'll just be very quick here. This is cross-county comparison between the primary and general. We are out there, that these are our numbers, request versus received. I think we hit like 80-something% return in the general. Just distribution across election districts. Again, going back and forth between the slides, you will see the pattern corresponds to the number of population in certain districts.
I'm sorry, I need you to go back, of course.
Yeah.
To the primary versus general. And again, am I reading this right? It looks like there were 50,000 mail-in ballots for the 2024 primary that were not returned. Or roughly 50,000.
For the
because-
primary, yeah,
Yes, because I see roughly 130-something thousand in terms of requests. I see roughly 80,000 in terms of
That's right.
returns. Now, what that could be is people who are on the permanent list who
That's
don't
correct.
care about primaries.
we have a very prominent big chunk of our voters who internally, when we look at them, they just vote general elections.
Right, and of course, the gap for the general election was not as significant.
Yep.
But the gap for the primary, I mean.
David, sorry, you have to count unaffiliated here. Anyone who is unaffiliated on a permanent list, they might not feel,
They might not feel compelled to vote for school board.
that's correct,
Right. No, understood. So they also might not have
that's correct.
might not have returned their ballots, but we did have, I mean, we had 50,000 primary ballots that were not returned, but that, good point, that we're including people who may have only had the school board on their ballot.
Yeah. Because I think that unaffiliated have a very small turnout.
In the primaries.
In the primaries.
Yeah.
And they make a significant percentage of our permanent.
Okay, thank you.
For a follow-up question,
Tina,
thank
ahead.
you, Mr. President.
Yeah.
Follow-up question. Regarding those that received it from the automatic listing of those, for mail-in ballots.
Okay.
Do we kind of understand like what that breakdown means for this versus those who were probably automatic lists, before the legislation, and those who were just habitual mail-in voters?
So later on in few slides, we will see the distribution of permanent versus regular.
Right.
And those who did not return, how many were on the permanent list, how many were them election specific? Those are habitual that you are talking about.
Yes.
We call them election specific because they come in, submit the request just for one election or election
Right.
cycle, but they don't want to be on the permanent list.
Right.
So we will get to that.
Thank
Web delivery requests. There was no other way but to put more prominent color, yellow or orangish, whatever. We went from 20,000 to 35,000 from the primary to the general. Our increase was 75% from one election to another, despite our effort to bring to everyone's attention that voting web delivery is not straightforward as it may seem. I also have to say that just like we had 75% increase, in absolute numbers, it's enormous. When you look percentages across the counties, more or less, many counties experience the same issue. Web deliveries went up 50, 60, 70% easily. Of course, there is a difference. In Howard County, went from 6,000 to 11, which is also 70%, but it's only 11. We had 3.5 times more than that. So this is one of those issues I mentioned at the very beginning. Volume versus trends, and trends across the state might match what we have in Montgomery County, just small prominent because of our size and the volume. Party breakdown of mail-in ballot requests. You will see 73% Democrats in the primary. The moment volume went up, it went down to 68, which I would say is pretty consistent across the board, across the election cycle. We have Republicans at 11%, unaffiliated on 20. Age distribution. This is what I mentioned at the beginning, the curve of age that we have in the county. To some extent, this curve has few outliers, especially 65 to 74, population that loves vote by mail, and they have almost 35,000 requests outstanding in our county. The way our voters request mail-in ballots, online. That's the name of the game in Montgomery County. Internet takes 2/3 of mail-in ballot requests. Sent pace. This one was mislabeled. This is the slide that was changed on the original application. You will see the first spike on the left side. These are voters on the permanent mail-in ballot list. This is what was sent in initial mailing in early stages. Everything after the first spike on the left, you can see it on the second screen, on the second image, which is basically increased changes. This is rate at which ballots were sent out, which means this is the rate in which the requests were received. We processed them and they went out. Obviously, we sent ballots out through the state vendor. State vendor was not sending daily. There was a calendar, there was a schedule. You see these spikes. You will see the spikes towards the end of October. We were hitting 4,500 a day. You will see that after the deadline to some request mail-in ballot, deadline for the state vendor to send out mail-in ballot, meaning where staff has to step in and send it manually from the office. We were still sending 500 to 800 ballots daily from the office itself. We had a high number of late requests. Sandy, Michelle, that was the name of the game. Every day prepared trays and trays of ballots that were hand delivered to the post office to be franked and to be sent out. Mail-in ballot requests versus web delivery. These are two graphs that don't match. You will see a slope on the web delivery, not necessarily on the mail. Permanent versus election specific. This is so drop, increase, again, look at the percentages, but look at the volumes against those percentages that exist. We went from 134, I think, to 192,000 requests, percentage points being a lot on that volume itself. Permanent mail-in ballot requests per party. Going forward, after the last general election, we had 125,000 permanent mail-in ballot requests. 11% of those are Republicans, 70% Democrats, and affiliated 18%. Of course, this number will change. The state has to implement the provision of the election law, which requires anyone who is on a permanent mailing list but who did not vote by mail in 2 consecutive general elections to be removed from the permanent list, with the caveat that they can still request to be placed again, but they have to be removed first. Ballot issue method, mail versus web, primary versus general. There's certain consistency in the percentages. Again, same percentage, higher volume, higher task on us. I will have to speed up because otherwise we'll take hours. But received versus not returned. I think this is one of the most interesting. This is something that's tasked for all of us going forward. 13% of ballots were not, mail-in ballots were not returned for the presidential general election. when we looked what happened to those 13%, we found that 50%, 54% of the total volume of those who did not return mail-in ballot did not vote at all. 46% voted provisional. So we have
I'm sorry, so the chart on the right are,
is split of the orange chart on the left.
so out of the 13% on the left,
Yeah,
the right tells us that 54% of those who didn't return it did not vote, and 46% of them added to our provisional ballot.
that's
totals.
correct. So I think that we have issue on both sides of this pie. We want those who voted provisional, we want that number to be less. And we would everyone who didn't vote for whatever reason to actually vote, because we sending the mail-in ballots or what any other option. Again, food for thought, as I said, it is just preliminary presentation. There will be many tasks that will come out of this.
I mean, frankly, I think only 13% not voting, that's pretty good.
Yeah, but
That seems awfully high.
13%, in our case, we were talking about 27,000 people.
Well, but it's only 13%.
Fair enough, fair enough. The problem,
2% of people who requested the ballots not returning them,
Well, how many?
especially with almost half of them voting by another means.
yeah, problem is,
But how many on a permanent mail and also?
we will get to that as well, but, for us, the problem was, felt 13,000 of them turned out to be provisionals. And we
And
appreciate.
we had 26,000 provisionals roughly, or 27,
yeah.
so
All right,
Such a
that's
lot-
the answer.
that's a,
It will be, I think, better for their voting experience, not to stand in line for 1 hour. It will be better for Sandy Lolita not to process those provisions, and it will be easier for board and canvassers just to have regular ballot or not at all.
and we'll give results faster too.
Absolutely.
I want to talk about this slide, but go ahead, you first.
Not return mail-in ballot issue method. Here's the 18% of all mail-in ballot requests were web delivery. When you look at those who did not return their ballot, web deliveries constitute 38%, more than double. So web deliveries have the disproportional non-return rate versus mail. Again, I don't have answers to everything, but I'm pointing tasks for us going forward.
Well, your warning might be
Well,
working.
I'm not exactly sure if it's in the presentation later, Boris, but you had some age-related information relating to
Yes.
web-delivered ballots that, because one of the questions, we have kind of a chicken and egg question here in part, because if our younger voters are more inclined to use web delivery than our older voters, which I think when you put all the data together, you're going to see that that's the case. And our younger voters are more inclined to not return their ballots than our older voters, and our web delivered voters are more inclined to not return their ballots than the mail voters, MAIL voters. Then, what is the factor that is preventing the return? Is it because younger voters don't return their ballots? Is it because web delivered ballot voters don't return their ballots, or is it both? And I realize you can't answer that question necessarily because you have to get in people's heads. But it's not as simple as assuming that the web delivery is the issue when you see that there is a significant difference by age category.
I again, cannot get in anyone's head, but if you look at the age of web deliveries and non-return, if you're looking at the age of SDRs, we are talking about last moment action.
Yes.
People, I assume that everyone on this table, we actually made our voting plan. We know how we would vote. We know where will we vote if we are voting in person. We will know what we will do. If we are talking about younger population, especially college students, it's at the moment, right? Group friends are going.
Oh, yes.
No,
Well,
Oh, yes.
no, I'm saying,
Kina was just happy that you put her in the college category.
I'm like, why you not pointing?
Yeah.
Daniel,
I will.
more mature end.
Yeah, but I will say,
Grad
I will say, first of all, that
Thank you.
board members are not necessarily a good indicator because we go to lots of polling places lots of the time. So we have many opportunities to vote. So if I didn't make a plan, I could just say, oh, it's not busy here, I'm gonna vote right now. But I will also say that there's definitely a tendency for anyone who is used to doing things online, regardless of age, to being used to doing things fairly quickly. And our process, a web delivered ballot is not that quick because it's not like Amazon. Although actually, I guess it has some comparability to Amazon because the delivery is not instantaneous, but it takes a day or two. Unfortunately for us, or fortunately for us, you can't pay to make your ballot come faster. But I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm not advocating that. That was a joke. That was a joke. But I guess what I'm saying is that if you're used to things happening right away, and this doesn't, and returning it is not easy. I mean, so I'll call you just a second, Margie. So if you get that, if you're used to web delivery and you think that web delivery also means that you can deliver it back by web, then you are in for a surprise. And that's been part of my effort, and I know others' efforts to make sure that voters know that it's only that's why I call it the print at home ballot. It's for you to print. You can't just send it back that way. Margie.
Does this like consider like people who are sending their mail from other states? So like usually college students could be out of state as well, like if you're between that age range. So like,
Yes.
so like, yes, you assume, oh, this is gonna be super easy versus I don't even know what the deadlines are. I live in another state right now temporarily because I go to school in another state. So I don't know.
You're saying that you think that it may be that people in another state are less willing to wait for their mail to arrive by using US mail?
No, I think they're unaware of the that the print at home ballot means that they're gonna have to go to a post office and send their mail
Yes,
out
yes.
because they're in another state. They don't have like a ballot box. They could just drop it off. at.
Right. I mean, they have a mailbox, but it could very well be that they are not familiar with what's required in order. I mean, a lot of young people have no other use for US mail other than us. And in those situations, we're asking a lot of them now, admittedly, if they get the US mail ballot with the return postage and all they have to do is drop it at the post office, and they do it early enough that they don't need the stamp on election day. Then obviously that's easier. How do we communicate that fact to those voters?
Just a small caveat from the top of my head, instructions on how to return the ballots are part of the instructions that are sent to the voters. I am the first one responsible for skipping first 3 pages of instructions and going to thinking, and I don't think that I'm an outlier. I think many people are like that, especially there's another caveat, like we are not Apple Pay. We will never be like that. In many instances, our voters who are in other states, just for the board and for the general public, we receive ballots in our drop boxes and our mail stream from other states. People who are studying here, for whatever reason, they just, they study in DC or they live in Montgomery County, they just drop Georgia ballots in our Dropbox. Lisa might correct me, I would say close to $3,000 or $4,000 we spent on overnighting those ballots to different states because they have different legal requirements when to receive those ballots. So we could not put them in normal mail. We wanted to make sure in Georgia, I think it's election day deadline. So everything was overnight.
So can you build a state? Send them a bill.
I think we split that cost with the state. That's cost is split without state board.
No, I mean, with the state you have to send it to.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they will send our ballots as well to us.
Okay.
So it's, I'm just saying, I think this is.
We're gonna establish a collection agency.
I think it's community, election community effort, recognizing that
Okay,
every
yeah.
ballot
Civic
counts.
spirit.
Everyone has different deadlines, therefore we just jump on them to make sure that those ballots reach those states. So it's possible.
Yeah, and actually, the slide that I was referring to for the age category is the next slide.
This is age distribution of not returned mail-in ballots. You will see the slope. Younger the population has more propensity not to return those ballots than the older one.
You just have to go to the,
There is no curve here that matches that.
I mean, you're looking at me while
No,
you're saying
No,
this.
no, I'm sorry, you're across
No, I
the
mean,
table.
no, I'm in shock, really.
yeah, no, I mean, it's, I mean, just so that people understand, we're talking 4,500
Yeah.
not returned for the 18 to 24-year-olds, almost 4,000 for the 25 to 34-year-olds. And it keeps going down. The only one that goes up as in this age category is the 55 to 64. And you guys will remember that the number of active voters in that age category is higher than the other age categories. So it's probably not the case that that is actually not, if we did percentages by age, it would almost be a direct slope of the younger you are, the more likely you are not to return your mail-in ballot.
Will we find out that they ended up voting in person?
So again, there are so many different data points that we can extract. I'm not sure that we covered every angle,
Okay,
but if they voted provisional. There was no other way to
Right.
vote in
understood.
person.
Right, but it also could be that they're the category of people, I mean, again, the younger people are more likely to be out of town, more likely, I mean, there's a number of different possibilities as to what's happening there.
Change their mind, go vote in person.
yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Your friend calls you and says, we're all going to go
I
vote.
mean, that's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely what
Yeah.
I'm thinking.
And I'm pretty sure that was happening on the Halloween night.
Yes.
Oh,
I
what a
agree.
crazy
For
night.
sure.
When the groups, they were going,
Oh, yeah.
younger
Right,
population was
the
going
last-
out for
The
parties.
last day of early voting, yeah.
Last day of
Showing up
voting.
in EVs in costume?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you clearly weren't there.
I'm discarding my own.
Got the wheat library that night.
Yes, yes, there were definitely some
Again.
voters in costume.
This is just like
It was
casual
fun.
observations, but actually they make sense as a potential that you're younger, you go for a Halloween party, you go with your
We
friends
should
to.
all vote in person. It's fun.
Well, aside from that, I realize that Diane is
Partisan shot.
it's not a partisan shot. Diane is just a constant advertisement for in-person voting. But I will just say that at the very least, we want our voters to understand the benefit of choosing a method of voting and sticking to it. And because if they wanted to, they could take their mail-in ballot and deliver it to the polls in costume if they want. And there's someone there who can take it, even if there's no drop box, the election officials can take it. And then you certainly will avoid the provisional ballot line. And you might avoid a number of other issues. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether our communication, this would be a discussion for another day, and Roberto, I'm sure we're gonna want to talk with you about the messages here. But I don't know if the communication is going to be, pick and stick, or if the communication is going to be, if you want to go to the polls, you can still bring your mail-in ballot if you have a mail-in ballot, or some combination, or what. But the system under which people order a mail-in ballot and then go to the poll is the one that's going to cause the most trouble for the voter and trouble for us, and delayed results. And I mean, it really doesn't serve anyone's purposes.
Next slide, I'm sorry, is just the Yokawa distribution of web deliveries versus mail. Dominance of web deliveries, certain categories almost equivalent when it comes to the military. Mail-in ballot return method, draw boxes versus mail primary versus general, just for the general public. PP, presidential primary, PG, presidential general. This is the abbreviations we use throughout the presentation. Again, volume did play a role when you see, but draw boxes are still remain popular with 50% or over. Mail almost caught up for the general election. Nursing home program. This is a program that we implement for quite a few years in the county. 53 nursing homes participated this time around. We help voters register, request mail-in ballot. We have bipartisan team that help them vote those ballots in those nursing home and assisted living facilities throughout the county. Nursing home participation, you will see that we are growing ever since COVID. So we hit 53. I think that number will just go up going forward in the county. Ballot drop boxes, this is usual presentation we have every election cycle, at least that I'm doing. Primary and general, top 10 performing drop boxes. You will see that I believe on top performing, we have 7 or 8 that are cross-cutting for the primary and general, even though the volumes are high. The same goes for the top bottom 10 performing. There's this repetition of the same drop boxes from one election to another. Small caveat here, primary in general, you will see that Montgomery College Tacoma Park was low, but this was the first year that drop box was introduced. Mail-in ballot pace of return. This is a slide that David indicated earlier. This is one of the slides that I have to say that we appreciate our voters working with us. 2022 election primary in general. On election day, in drop boxes, we collected 12,000 ballots. Volume was much smaller. This time around, volume went up. In a significant percentage. Yes, we only collected 8,000 on election day, which is cut by almost a third. And I really appreciate the effort that voters helped us by returning those ballots earlier. This is returned on monthly by mail. Yeah.
Thank you. Boris, question from Makina. Previous, yes, exactly, this slide. There are two significant spikes
Okay,
in this. Do we have an idea of either what community or cultural activities happened during that time that would have resulted?
close of voter registration October 15 and deadline to request mail-in ballot.
Yeah.
So these are two heavily advertised events on the election calendar. And you will see October 15 and you will see around October 30th. You are looking towards the end of the early voting, close of registration, beginning of early voting, end of early voting, and deadlines to request mail-in ballots. These are when the spikes happened.
Now, the close of voter registration was also the first day that we did a pre-election canvass.
That's correct.
So to the extent that that got any publicity, that also would have put mail-in ballots on people's minds as well.
Yeah, it triggers the interest. So these are the events that trigger the interest in addition to whatever else we do.
And the spike that's roughly the 29th of October. Early voting ended on the 31st, so that would have been like the previous Monday. So
What is the deadline to request mail-in ballot? 30th?
Yes.
So it's later.
it's rough. It's basically, it's still the category of people who are waiting till near the
Yeah,
deadline.
yeah, and I think in 2022, there are spikes like this, almost the same time frame. So there's a consistency in that. Cured mail-in ballots, cured versus uncured. Mail-in ballots returned without signature. We reach out. We managed to cure half of them. You will see that text to cure, 21% of those who cured ballots used the text to cure. I think that we were the most successful county that actually, in terms of text to cure utilization in the last election. It doesn't come as a surprise. We were the only county on the East Coast that did it in 2022. So this is the second cycle for us. We already kind of build a bit of habit internally and with our voters. How did we receive those cured signatures that were not text by cure? You see through drop boxes, emails, mail, and various options. Same day registration. This is the number that I mentioned at the very beginning. Please take a look at the spike of 2024 general election. It's literally nothing to do with short of 2020, which again, keep in mind, many instances where voters would do regular voter registration in 2020, MVA, Social Security, libraries, everything was closed. So SDR was an outlet for voter registration in 2020. And we had the spike, which was like half of what we had this year. So there are certain explanations. We are looking at the college campuses, college students in general, younger population, but this is the number that also generate a high number of provisionals.
Yeah.
Because those who were pre-qualified, who had Maryland driving license or ID, they voted a straight ballot. Those who didn't have ID on them, who didn't have proof of residency or anything, they voted provisional. So we will get to those numbers. they're quite significant, so. There is, as I said in the beginning, every action in one aspect has a repercussion going forward on everything that we do.
Boris, are we also able to break down in terms of locations where those?
We will get, so we will get to that.
Okay.
We will get to that. Age distribution of same day registration. You will see 18 and especially 25 to 34, but there's a slope going after that.
Yeah.
So it does not correspond to our average age distribution in the county. These are home districts. This is where people live who utilize same day registration. There are some variations here. They are not really that great, but there are some. When you pull the numbers for District 13 versus District 9 and 7, but then you play with the percentages, there are some 20% off, which was kind of out of standard. That's one of the tasks for us to look going forward. This is where those precincts, where those same day registrants come from. This is your question,
Sure.
Daniel.
Mhm.
So you will see on the left, the highest. These are the precincts that most same day registration, same day registrants reside.
Okay.
On the right is again, same the precincts there, which also had SDR, same day registration, but much smaller number. Here we can speak about certain patterns, right? We can, not patterns, we can identify locations that generated more SDR than others. Because spread of 209 to 5 over 232 polling places is significant, right?
Yeah.
Now we can talk, what's in Tacoma Park? Why 1347, right?
Yep.
Do we have younger population there? Is there like a student living areas?
The college campus.
There you go.
Yeah.
So Bethesda Chevy Chase High School, right?
Yep.
Are we talking about students who might be attending DC colleges, residing in that part of southern?
Or coming off of the metro.
Fair enough. Again, as I said, it's for the conversation. You will see Bethesda Chevy Chase, you will see Bethesda Elementary, you will see MC Cultural Arts Center, you will see Tacoma Park Elementary School, Silver Spring building, right? You will see that East County, there's a certain repetition here.
Yeah.
So we can, again, know all answers today, just conversation.
Sure.
Early voting, same day registration in the course of early voting, day 8, like everything else, went up significantly. By location, I think that not really too many surprises here, Janet, right? This is what we would be expecting anyhow. Okay, provisional issues code. Thank you. Again, there are 12 codes. We just focus on 5. Nothing that's not outlier. You will see code 1, not on precinct register, people who voted outside of their precinct. Change of address will follow that. Change of party affiliation will just work for the primary. Listed as absentee already voted, that's code 4. Those are people who requested mail-in ballot mainly but did not return it. And not pre-qualified for same day registration. Going back to the conversation. Good, it's good to have so many SDRs. It's not good when they show up without the documents and end up being provisionals. Please, code 1, not on the precinct register. This is distribution among the districts. These are locations. And you will see again that we can talk about issue areas. You will see that they overlap with early voting centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will see on the right side that there is nothing related to early voting. Everything is on the left. And we are talking about smallest single digit number to 3-digit numbers, big time. Again, for the further conversation planning for sure. Almost all the early voting sites that serve as polling places on this top list. Code 2, breakdown, change of address. Here's the example of there is no pattern. The highest is 35, the lowest is 1. So 232 polling places squeeze between these two numbers. There is no pattern here. We can talk whether outliers, these early voting sites, but again, I think that if we go for the median would be somewhere very low, so we cannot really discern the pattern here. This is just a summary of provisional code 1 and 2 for the early voting sites that serve as a polling places on election day. Provisional code 4, people who requested mail-in ballot but voted provisional. Again, issue here is district 13 compared to district 4, 7, and 9. Because we are talking about 20, I think 79, there's a difference of 20% in voting, number of voters. Yes, they have the same number of the provisionals for this code. So this is something for us to look forward, 4, 7, 9, and of course 13 for the sheer volume itself. Code 4 breakdown among the early voting sites. This is these are the polling places where code 4s happen. Please, highest is 58, the lowest is 3. It's everywhere in the county. This is not a clear-cut distribution as it is for the voting outside of the precinct.
Sure.
Because if top 3 would be 300-400, we would be able to talk about some significant outliers. 58 highest, it's everywhere. That's my summary of this. Party breakdown, Democrats, Republicans are affiliated. I think the percentages hold. Total party demographics for code 4, I think more or less would correspond to the voter registration overall. Provisional code 4 age. May I just refer to board to the very beginning, breakdown of age across there's a curve. Curve is there. Okay, at the polling places, all these voters had a chance to fill out the sheet and tell us the reasons why they are voting provisional, even though they requested mail-in ballot. I have to say that the sheet is being redone. I think the state administrator had some questions on it. We also have some questions we'd like to see changed. But in essence, around 9,500 people provided answers to us, something like that. We broke it down early voting and election day. But in summary, mail-in ballot, they claimed that they did not receive mail-in ballot, 4,700 people. That's why they voted provisional. Those who received the mail-in ballot but still decided to vote in person, almost 5,000 people. Each one of those voted provisional.
Yeah.
So this is a big group of people. We have issues with the web deliveries that were delivered over a month before the election day. In many instances, they went into junk mail. Junk mail deletes every month. People lost them. Many instances, ballots were delivered. They couldn't be located. I'm the first one to admit I couldn't find mine in the Safeway promotional magazine, whatever it was. So, but numbers were huge. Provisional code 4 method of mail-in ballot delivery. This is what I was referring to. Double web delivery, right?
Yeah.
Mail versus web delivery per age group. If you see it, web delivery, it's almost the perfect curve that follows the age of the overall. Mail has certain outliers from 35 to 44 and 54 to 64, but otherwise we are almost there at the pattern. Permanent versus election specific, who end up voting provisional. Kina, you will see that here 62 were on the permanent mailing list, 38 are election specific. Now the question remains, out of these 62%, how many of them didn't vote last general election as well in 2022? So they will be removed from the permanent list by the election law provision. So we will wait and see. Board will remember we introduced cancellation sheets for the primary, giving options for the voters to cancel their permanent or mail-in ballot requests. We went from I think 550 requests in the primary to 2,300 in the general. So this will be introduced as a practice throughout the state after our successful implementation. Canvas, I'll go very briefly, our overview of the dates, number of ballots canvassed, when the provisional started, when were the dates and overall, how we canvass provisional, how many ballots on each occasion, party affiliation of the canvassers, totals 40% Democrats, Republicans 34, unaffiliated 26. On the right side, you have the numbers. On this slide, you will see the percentage or the number share per canvas day. Canvas in-person observers. Just, sorry. Okay. Just for the record, how many people showed up each day? Accepted ballots in full, provisionals in part, mail-in ballots, just an overview. Rejected mail-in ballots, this is a snapshot at certain time, recognizing the board even today rejected some ballots. Yeah. So that number will just grow. This is not the final number. Sorry. Mail-in ballot rejection codes, too late, 2/3 go under that category, and this number is still growing again. Board just added 55 today to this category itself.
Do you remember what the total number was before today, roughly?
I know that,
It was roughly 600 at the time of certification.
yeah, and I don't know how much we added. We can calculate.
Okay.
Because you just went
Okay.
through the board, every board
Right,
meeting
right,
after that.
right. But I mean, but I mean, we're adding quite a bit. I mean, we're adding 50 some ballots today.
And I think we
Yeah.
added something like that last time.
Right. Okay.
Provisional rejection code breakdown. An outlier here absolutely is code 7. Incomplete information was provided on the application. Just a small reference, I think that as a board, we had the conversation on this one. 74% of these code 7 were generated at 5 polling places. We see that as a training issue. We reached out to everyone. We'll talk going forward, try to fix this the best that we can. But again, it's definitely an outlier on this one, and it's identified. Call statistics. We received quite a few numbers, phone calls in the election season. It's just a breakdown per day. We have a length of those phone calls. They seem to be more or less consistent to the 2022. Yeah, we just provide 2 numbers. Sorry, I forgot to say 8,500, which is the main number, and 8,550, which is direct mail-in ballot number. Now, wait times. And I'm sorry for the length of this. Early voting average and maximum wait times. While the average remains really low, the peaks are high. We are talking about 90 minutes. Caveat for the wait times throughout this presentation: whenever there was a line during early voting or election day, election judges, rightly so, emphasized serving the voters instead of measuring the wait times. We understand that everyone was under a lot of pressure to deal with the long lines, so I cannot claim that we have every hour collected. But we did the best for the presentation with the best effort that our election judges did, recognizing the lines they had in place. When it comes to the wait times during early voting, yeah, Borough Park, Germantown, Borough Park. These are, I think, well documented instances. Early voting wait times. This slide, please note, not every early voting site is listed. Only early voting sites that on any day had a wait time of 20 minutes or more are listed. Those that you see in red are 30 minutes and over. So we introduced a limit, which is still below, I believe, national standard of 20 minutes or less. If you had 20 minutes wait in 2024 presidential general, we really didn't consider it as a long wait time due to the turnout that we had. Again, you will see Borough Park, multiple days. D1, D2, D3 indicates the days of early voting. You will see that some early voting sites were not listed at all. Line of voters in line of 7 a.m. on the first day and the last day, just an overview. Polling places reporting waiting times. Almost 85, 90 polling places had lines in the morning at 7 a.m. on when they open, which is expected. Everything is as expected. and few had, I think had like 6 headlines at 8 PM, which is almost negligible on our volume, on our number of polling places, depending which polling place we are talking about. We will get to that. Election day average wait times, you will see that we peaked on 14 minutes as the average. Election day maximum wait time, we almost hit 135 minutes, that's Silver Spring. So, again, isolated to a small number, very dominant Silver Spring this time. Election day provisional wait times. Again, this is something specific from Montgomery County. I believe that we are the only jurisdiction that actually measures these wait times. We are the only one who could do it. So, average still looks good. Maximum, again, the problem, and again, Silver Spring. Sandy,
Was the maximum always Silver Spring, or do these maximums reflect different places at different times?
I think that when it comes to provisionals, it was always Silver Spring. When it comes to average, regular,
Right, no, the average is an average.
no, when it comes to the regular early voting, it was fluctuating between
Okay,
the centers.
But you think that the maximum provisional time was always Silver Spring?
That's, I have to look, but I think that's my recollection. If I don't have it here. Election day provisional maximum wait times.
Well, we don't need it now, but it would obviously be interesting to know if there are particular locations that,
So,
you know, with particular problems. We're aware of some, but we're not aware of all.
so when it comes to election day provisional maximum, wait, Galway Elementary School had 132 minutes.
132 minutes for provision.
Yeah,
Wow.
So
that's.
you had Richard Montgomery 90, Montgomery College Cultural Arts Center 103. So there were a few that were outliers on big scale. So again, we have the list, but we're just talking about kind of trends here. Election day provisional wait times top 10. This is what we are talking about here, right? Now, comment cards. 14,600 comment cards returned. We had the QR codes introduced this election cycle. In addition to paper, something new every time, recognizing the trend in the county. Again, this is the second instance that I have to emphasize that our voters work with us. We received the highest score at roughly 95% comment cards that we got back, which I believe is something that credit goes to everyone who was involved, to all election judges who were implementing elections at the polling places. These questions are related to their voting experience, location of the polling place, organization of the polling place, and interaction with election judges. So we are talking about 94 to 96% grade 5.
Course.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's part of the comment card, but were they asked about wait times? Like, or were they okay with wait times or satisfied with wait times? Okay.
Because we have only a limited number of questions. But again, wait time is related to voting experience.
True.
So if you had, I think that our voters understood. Last day of early voting, I was in Wheaton. Every member was somewhere. We really didn't have people complaining in the line. They understood. They showed up last hour on the last day of early voting. They understood that they will wait in the line. And that takes me to this slide, because we actually collected comments from our voters what would help to alleviate those wait times. Coffee, donuts, we received suggestions to have flowers, and we had a big number of voters requested charging stations for their mobiles. But
To be fair, I did hear that actually,
I
and I don't know whether or not we have this in our capacity to do that, but I
we
did,
don't.
I did hear that enough times.
It's not
and I
as
thought
messy as donut.
Right, exactly.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
As I said, we really appreciate that voters did recognize our effort.
Mhm.
And the fact that some things like Bora Park, right? We maxed out on the space on a assignment of judges and equipment.
Yeah, just for the record, for those who don't follow us all
Fair
the
enough.
time. So the lines at Bora Park were not a surprise. They were an unfortunate byproduct of Bora Park's need to resurface their gymnasium and their they were only able to get one of the few contractors that does that work to do it during the time that we would have needed the gym.
That's good.
And I've been assured, I ended up sitting next to the mayor of Gaithersburg at an event last month. I've been assured that we will have what we need for the next election. You know, and I will say that our staff at Borough Park did the best they could with the situation there. I also did a lot of redirecting people to other locations that had shorter lines that I think a lot of people took advantage of. And you know, obviously, we're going to respond to whatever situation we're presented with. It's not going to be the last time we have a situation that we have to adapt to. But I think that the Borough Park situation itself is very unlikely to be repeated. I will say that the Gaithersburg High School line on election day, I know it's not what you're dealing with right now, but I'm reminded of it because it's right near Borough Park. That line is a repetition from 22 to 24, where there's a lot of people who are voting there who shouldn't be voting there. Because that's not their polling place. They think they can go there, you know, and similarly, some of your, I don't remember if I'm ahead of you, Boris, but you have slides in here that talk about some of the places that have a number of people, some of the places that are close to early voting sites or that were early.
We
voting
went
sites.
through that, yeah.
Okay, so Wood Middle School, right next to Bauer Drive, same problem. You know, in addition to Gaithersburg, in addition to the other early voting sites. So absolutely we have some work to do there. But the Borough Park example was really an unusual circumstance for this election.
Check-in times, this is again, very informational. Just to, for everyone, we can have a conversation on a separate note. Early voting, total hourly check-ins. If you look across the 8 days of early voting, this is how the numbers look like. Election day, regular check-in. You see the fluctuation and drop at certain hours versus another's. And you'll see 8 p.m. check-in. These are the small handful of locations that had headlines. Election day provisional, I would say it was all over the board. Provisionals were just there throughout the whole day. In person, very briefly, BMD's ballot marking devices still remain popular in the county. This is their use between the primary and the general. Early voting, there's a split, but you will see that some early voting centers hit 70% use of BMD during early voting for 30% of paper ballot. This again, we will accommodate all the preferences for our voters, but Mindy would know very well that we cannot. We have to plan ballot order as if everyone would vote a standard ballot, which generates storing issues, transport issue, returning back to Mindy, preparing for shredding and shredding. So it's a cycle. It's not that.
Can I ask a question about that,
Yes.
Boris? I started comparing the data from different early voting centers to see if there was a pattern at all as to which ones are favoring the ballot marking device and which ones are not, and I couldn't find one. Other than perhaps personal preferences and whatever they've done before.
Yeah.
And I've noticed certainly in doing the rounds of early voting sites that there are some early voting sites where, you know, that's what everyone wants to do. And there's some where that's not the case. And I don't know whether, you know, whether we have any, I find it hard to believe that we have some early voting sites where 70% of the people choose the ballot marking device. And then we have other early voting sites where 65% choose the standard ballot without there being some involvement of our election officials in what they encourage or don't encourage. And or the number of ballot marking devices there, or the, you know, the lines, or how long people are taking, or whatever. But for example, I believe that the 71% ballot marking device, that is EV1, that's mid-county.
Yep.
And the 65% that is EV9, that is where it's only 34% ballot marking device, that's Wheaton, right down the road.
Leisure
So,
World,
I'm sorry,
Leisure World.
Number one.
Where do voters from Leisure
That's-
World vote?
so you're saying that Leisure World has a preference for ballot marking devices? All right, so now Leisure World goes both to Mid-County and to Bauer Drive. Bauer Drive has 47% ballot marking devices and 52% standard ballots.
I'm not saying that there is a
Yeah.
pattern. I'm just saying that at some level, this is our understanding why, right? Is it correct? And please understand, would it hold across the election cycles?
Yeah, we
Many
don't know,
people-
we don't know.
Many people vote after working hours. Where the people would work 2 years from now? Someone will get job from Silver Spring to Gettysburg. They might be
No, understood.
lining up in Borough Park, so.
And we have a lot more PMDs at EVO one than we do at 14. I set up 9 to 10 at EVO one, only like 4 to 5 at EV 14 because I don't have space.
Okay, so that may have something to do with it as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just voter preference, it's also space.
I don't want to stand in line. EVO one, I can go in and.
No, I understand. If you, in EVO one, they have lots of space.
Right.
And
Bauer,
sockets, they, elections.
yes, I understand. And at Bauer Drive, you know, a different story. Okay, so it's not strictly voter preference. Sometimes it's the situation.
Makes
Okay.
sense.
But I think that common understanding is that BFDs are. I know in 2018, when I served as election judge, we were mandated to make sure that 10 people vote every day for the confidentiality of those votes, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that we issued that instruction ever since
Ever
we did it,
since.
because
You haven't had
it
to.
happens, yeah, exactly. We don't have to, it happens by itself. We literally had to count to make sure at least 10 voters vote. We had to advertise it.
Right.
BFD usage. Election day. Rockview Elementary School is outlier because we had actually technical issues with the equipment there, so we were replacing them in the course of the day for handling purposes. So again, going back to that proposition, they were not available for the whole
Right.
day, so.
But it's also interesting that the number one BMD usage is one of the Leisure World precincts, but the other two are not on this list. And I don't know, I'd be curious to know what the, you know, what were the percentages in the other two, is if our theory is that Leisure World voters like
Yeah.
BMDs.
We can, okay,
I mean, obviously the list is only the top and bottom 10, so,
yeah, it's,
Yeah.
we opted not to show 232
yeah,
polling places.
we appreciate that. We definitely appreciate it.
So, yeah, top 10, low 10, across election, districts, standard ballot usage, again, I'll just. Election workers, recruitment. Party affiliation. This is what we had for the, presidential primary, this is what we had for the presidential general. Roughly plus minus 1 percentage point, even though the numbers went up for the presidential general, so. Even though change was 1 point, the absolute versus relative number, right? Absolute percentage increase versus relevant increase on percentages versus absolute totals was higher in the general.
Alex Benson.
You know, I noticed in the prior slide, we seem to have pretty good Republican participation of the candidates, which was encouraging.
We did. We had higher than election, the polling place. But again, we had people who applied to.
So let me make the same pitch that I make on a regular basis, which is if the Republican Party were to ask half of its poll watchers to be election workers, number one, you'd be training really good poll watchers for when they're done being election workers. And number two, you would be increasing that percentage of Republicans among our election judges, which is currently, I mean, obviously, we have many more Democrats than we have Republicans in Montgomery County, but we still have Republicans and independent voters underrepresented among election day election workers. election judges.
Is this cover both early voting and election day or just
Yeah.
election day?
This is total. Presidential primary, presidential general. We will get to that.
No, it's not hugely different. I mean, it's 14% compared to 12 and 11, and it's 25% compared to 20. And the Democrats are 66 and 67 compared to 59, I believe. But I will say that, again, you know, if there are people out there who are, you know, who are willing to do it, because obviously from our perspective, I was very pleased, like you said, about Canvas and about the balanced Canvas. And Michelle, thank you very much for, you know, for paying attention to that. But it's a lot easier to get, you know, 50 tables staffed than it is to get, you know, 200 and some polling places staffed. And we also need people to be willing to go to places that are not necessarily their home precinct. And not everyone is willing, of any political affiliation, not everyone is willing to do that. But to the extent that we can encourage people, and you know, I realize there are people out there who will never be an election judge because they want to electioneer on election day, and there may be people who will never be an election judge because they want to be a poll watcher on election day. But if a fraction, you know, if a sliver of those people were to become election workers, it would not only help us, but I think it would also give people more insight into how we operate.
Age distribution, presidential primary, presidential general. I think that if you look, I think 17 and under, we are talking 16 and 17 year olds. We fluctuate between 8 to 10%, which in my belief is huge percentage,
Yeah.
especially for the jurisdiction of this size.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Yeah.
I beat you to it.
Yeah, I know you did.
I beat you to it. The
You-
prerogatives of the chair, you know.
You will see that in the presidential general, next two categories, 18 to 25 and 26 to 40, we are on 8% each. So
I'm sorry, say that again.
18 to 25 and 26 to 40, we are 8% each in these categories
For the general.
for the general. And
Okay.
going forward, I think this is a population that is likely to work, live and stay in Montgomery County. This is the population that we would like to attract to be with us, because this is the population that will serve for next 5 to 10 election cycles if they are in the county. I'm just talking about tasks that are ahead of us because.
Well, not only that, I mean, at a certain point, many of our judges are going to decide that a 16-hour day is too much.
Yep.
And we have some 8-hour positions that obviously we can be offering them, but we're gonna need more people to fill in for those who can no longer do the long days, who are willing to do the long days.
Please take a look, 61 to 70 is 71 plus.
Yes, I know.
Percentage is identical.
Right. It's basically, it's 50% of our election workers are over the age of 60.
Yep.
And now that's probably a lower percentage than many other places in the country and
That's
the
correct.
state. But there's a reason why we've been putting that focus on younger people. And so, because we want to train them now and get them to work their way up, and then they'll be ready to be chiefs.
That's the same conversation we can have about canvas. It's about increasing the pool. Because even our canvas pool was not that big, but continuous work gives us a larger pool that is that has different party affiliations.
So Boris,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, if you left them the last slide, so is the expectation that we're hoping to increase the percentage of 26 to 40?
So we will get to the point that we would have to say, we want to increase the total number period.
Okay,
And then when it comes to the percentages, we would like everyone to step forward. But if we are talking about not continuously returning election judges, but creating a new pool of civically minded, engaged election judges who will serve for next 5, 10 cycles,
Right.
that's the population.
it's interesting that we're looking at that population only because there are fewer people who, to my intellectual viewpoint of this, are not in a position to provide those hours of service.
Fair enough,
You know.
fair conversation to have. I'm not saying that there are no reasons for that, but I'm just saying if we will be looking, because we have a significant number of election judges who didn't come back this time. Right? We also had the canvassers who told us this was my last election. Because even canvas 8 hours sitting in one spot is too much, so we have to look a bit longer term here. Election worker applications. Just for the sake of argument, paper applications are 18%. Welcome to Montgomery County. Anything that could be done online, please, let's do it online. You will understand emphasis that we were putting on building that election management resource system. Everyone can fill out the paper application, but it's Montgomery County. Please let me do it online, preferably by myself in my own time. That's the
Do you have data on what other counties do?
I don't.
Because I'm gonna predict that there's a substantial online caucus in the other counties as well.
Absolutely, but I think that we are also, because of our volume, we are outlier because we build our own system. Other counties, some of them utilize MD voters, some of them compensate MD voters with off-shelf data. Yeah, so we would like to have it that. Now, staffing overview, early voting presidential primary, allocation versus served. Please, you see the served is more than allocation. It's not. If you look second, early voting VOP full day, and then you have part day. Those have to be divided by 2 totals, because 460 part A and 460 part B make 1 service. So we list the number of individuals, but number of service days was still on target.
Okay.
Again, this is tracking and reporting. We make a difference between individual service day and the occupancy. So we will get to that. Overview presidential primary. Please pay attention to in gray, completed training but did not serve 297. And this is many of them let us know when it's too late to do anything. We were lucky in the presidential primary, there was no turnout on election day. We were really short-staffed.
I'm gonna interject here. If you all saw, I sent I sent the board an email message last night. There is legislation in Annapolis that we're gonna discuss later on our agenda, whether to support, which would require election judges to serve at early voting or election day in order to be paid. In other words, they don't get paid just for showing up for training. Because we have, again, we have 297 who showed up for training and didn't serve. And they, under current law, they still get paid for training. So.
Yeah, there are two numbers here that are very important going forward. Completed application, but did not complete the training, 1,100. Fair enough. If something comes up, people change their mind. And field promoted chiefs on election day. The board will remember that we were short on specialty positions, especially chiefs. We did field promotion for 44 of them on election day.
Well,
We had to have 2 chiefs of different party affiliation. We had to do the field promotions on the spot. Presidential general early voting. The same story here. We were fully staffed for the early voting. Please note, completed training but did not serve 209. But the good thing is we had 0 field promotions of the chiefs on election day.
Boris, what is the expected conversion of people who've completed training and then serve?
Could you speak up a little more when you're?
Yes, what is the
percentage of people that complete application?
yeah, what's the full conversion of people who complete training and then serve?
I think that we were looking about 2,000, 2,500 drops, right? So if we started like, for example, 10,000 completed application, 7,500 completed training, 4,500 to 5,000 would sign up to serve. Yeah, that was like, I remember at some point we looked just at the historical numbers.
Right.
I don't remember how correct that, how accurate it is, because every election will fluctuate to different extent. Returning election judges returning service bonus. You know, if anyone who served previous election, who served the early voting election day, got $100 bonus, 50 for half days. We had a lot of returning judges. Target communication. Just short overview of everything that we did. Small side note here. We had problems to recruit individual volunteers in certain districts, certain precincts. We did targeted emails to anyone whose email address we had in those precincts. And we did targeted emails to Republicans in certain precincts, certain districts, especially when we were short of other party affiliations. So we tried to utilize that targeted approach to the extent possible. Email which says, you, your family member, friends and neighbors, anyone is welcome. That was literally invitation, show up and serve with whomever. But trainings, number of classes, occupancies, I will just go very briefly. You will see how the percent numbers went through 1 week to another. Occupancy rate of those classes, presidential general turnout, equipment. This is very technical. This is part of our internal tracking and the communication with the state. Early voting call centers, election day call centers, any communication that we receive from the polling places or early voting, what complaints are, and Janet dispatched her team to look at those issues and resolve them. Whether it's a problem with the equipment that doesn't want to turn on, or we are missing some forms, or election judges cannot find certain forms. This is the issues we addressed. Election night reporting. I think that presidential general, we did extraordinary job of having 230 polling places reporting by 11 p.m. We were two pending for another hour and a half roughly. So by 11 o'clock, 99.14 of election day precincts, we had numbers in there.
That is truly impressive.
So,
And has not, as you know, always been the case. So congratulations, that was truly impressive.
so these, yeah, the remaining two precincts, their reports received by 12:30. I think for the primary,
We're missing a few.
2022, did we get at 4 o'clock we finished, 4:30 we left? Yeah, something like that.
We want you to leave earlier.
We also want to leave early.
Yes, we want you to have more like this general election.
Yeah, this is a graph which basically indicates the time span and how it is. Outreach, this is the moment where I will go quiet for a bit.
Roberto, it's nice of you to give Boris a break from his voice for a little bit.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Oh, right here.
So once again, thank you so much for everyone for all your support, also the public, all the nonprofits, faith, academia, all the way from A to Z, including the parties, both parties who are very active in assisting us. In addition to the Republican Central Committee helping us to identify poll workers to work the polls during this election cycle. Brief overview, these were the engagement focus, the two that we added compared to 2022, expanding post-COVID outreach, because of course in 2020, we're on the global pandemic, everything shut down. And then in 2022, slowly the community was opening, large events, the different issues, concerns with masks, etc. In one of the slides, we did over 600 outreach events. So as an attestment to kind of leaving kind of COVID 2020, 2022. So I appreciate everyone who played a part in that, and also focusing on the election poll worker recruitment as it pertains to Montgomery County registered voters affiliated with the Republican Party, and we'll continue that relationship moving on forward. Okay. These are our outreach topics. We try to kind of engage the public beyond when they get any publications from our office. For example, the sample ballot. There's a lot of topics that our team are extremely well versed. So when they go to different events, there's different questions that will arise. This is a listing. This is not a solid list, but these are the topics that we actually engage with the electorate. This is also topics that are, discussed with our future voters as well, with the goal that eventually they will become poll workers. As the board stated, about 10% give and take of our poll workers are high school students. So we try to start them young with the topics so they understand how to protect and how to leverage their voting rights once they come of age and once they're registered to vote. This is a distribution of over 600 events. We also incorporate a lot of outreach with Montgomery College and the public school system. So in 2022, it was a give and take of about 250. Now we've gone up to 600. So our goal is to continue that trend. I am confident that as a whole, we do more outreach as it pertains to the other counties in the state. And we do talk to our counterparts, and they're still kind of amazed that we do this many. And we're continuously looking at opportunities. I want to thank the board too for a bunch of events that were brought to my attention. We asked the public to give us at least 2 weeks, but nonetheless, if you just set up the pins, we'll knock them down. So, at any time you hear an event, big or small, don't care if it's 500 individuals, an event with 5,000 or 5, we want to be there. This is the breakdown of our Future Vote program. About close to a little under 1,300 students participated. We had about a total of 179 high school events. We also visited middle schools to really kind of promote the program and the opportunity for individuals to really serve within the communities in which they live. This is a good location where we recruit a lot of our students who are bilingual. As you know, and I'm not going to preach, we're preaching to the choir. Montgomery County has one of the most diverse regions in the country. Historically, we have 4 to 5 cities that are the most diverse: Rockville, Gaithersburg, Wheaton, White Oak, Germantown, etc. So really the advocacy working at with our students at a young age, and hopefully they'll become poll workers, whether they leave to the workforce, college, or the military, to give them the opportunity and that taste of democracy by serving as such. When you look at the breakdowns, so in the next slides, predominantly they're middle school kids. Once they get their student service learning credits, it drops. But then once the student becomes 16, as long as they meet the state requirements to be a registered voter and to serve in said capacity, they go to the training, they get placed, etc. Then they will serve as a poll worker. And that's why you see that difference between middle school and high school.
Got a big drop off with 11 and 12 graders.
Yeah, they want the money. Yeah.
You want to graduate, you better get them.
Yeah, exactly. I have enough SSL. And also keep in mind, when they start applying to colleges and as a senior, they should have all the nice bulk of their SSL by the time they're 11th graders. But when they're seniors, they apply to colleges, etc., if they have that interest.
Yep.
The breakdown of the demographics, also as diverse as the population. We continue to go into the different communities, middle schools. We go to back to school event, MCPS. We have a predominantly presence there as well. We also work with private and parochial schools, and we're also working with homeschools. So that's an ever expanding population, homeschools. But once again, any opportunity to engage our young electorate before they reach the age or the requirements to register to vote and to serve as election judge is a welcomed opportunity. Campaign analysis. So if you look, give and take, we have multiple engagement opportunities, whether it's the app, texting. Over 39,000 people will text. So if you text the word vote, if you text the letters EV plus your zip code, you get the nearest early voting location, wait times, etc. Radio impressions, over 1 million impressions. Print, over 875,000. Facebook, over 18,000. Twitter or X, over 220,000. And Google Ads, about over 2 million impressions. So if you look at Google Ads, predominant, it's phone, mobiles. You hear an ad or radio, a friend, you Google something, you get the information, you get an impression. So you have over 2 million impressions. But if I click on a link, let's say I want to register to vote, and it says Montgomery County Board of Elections, there's a voter registration link. When you click that link, then that's an interaction. So out of the 2 million, you get about 28,000 interactions with that search with Google Ads. Over 3,000 were using computers, about 3,300 tablets, but the bulk would be mobile cell phones. Facebook, breakdown between gender, male, females, 65 to 34% give and take. And so this was very consistent to the last election cycle. Our reach, obviously, the increases would be focused to the different campaigns that we were focusing on voter registration. When we started going back to the high schools, whether it was the summer after kids get out of school and there's activities like National Poll Worker Recruitment Day. So depending on what was being circulated is the impression that you would get. And also our Facebook visits. If you look at our visits, the top cities, Germantown, about 9% would interact with our posts. And then Aspen Hill was 2%, give and take. So these are the locations. Twitter X, if you look at the peaks, they correspond with both the primary and the general election. And also as it pertains to early voting as well. Once again, all the messages that we post on Facebook also will be posted on Twitter X and also on Instagram. Some X/Twitter numbers. We have about over 2,600 followers, 89 are verified. We have about 547 replies, over 1,000 likes, 579 reposts. And these are kind of the numbers, high level impressions over 220,000. The engagement rates with our posts, a little over 3%. Engagements overall, 8,000, and our profile visits, 630. And this is where we're trying to kind of grow as it pertains to our reach. 24 people bookmark our information, 46 individuals will share, over 24,000 visits to our videos. We have a series of small animated videos that we will circulate and people would watch those videos. They're about a minute to a minute and a half. Different topics on mail-in voting, drop boxes, working as a poll worker, future vote, etc. So there's short animated videos. And also the posts, the media posts over 29,000. Okay, high level. Any questions?
Is that the end?
That's
That's
the end.
the end of the.
The end of the presentation?
The end of the presentation.
No, don't leave, don't leave. I believe the board vice president has a question for you.
I mean, how do you do all of this, man?
It's a team effort.
So, no, but very seriously, I mean, I wouldn't be quiet because of the impact, right? That the materials that the team put on social media. Let me speak for myself. I've been just lifting that information and sharing it on WhatsApp. And the amount of engagement, but also appreciation that people had for how clear, how concise, but the fact that they could go to the website and then, able to fill out maybe an application or able to check wait times, or I mean the various, it's invaluable. And in a very serious note, I believe as board, we really need to make sure we really push for the resources you guys need, because I mean, yes, we're people are reaching out to us, but really you're making it so easy for us to look good. I mean, and it's hard to make us look good, but you guys are making it. Well, let me speak for myself.
No, it's not.
You
You look very good today.
No, thank you. But I have people who can attest to this, and I'm only saying this because I'm actually passing on a message for many members of the community who just want to thank the entire staff. And that face of the staff is really the outreach and the information that you provide on social media I know all board members, if you go to your Facebook page, I like almost every post you put on Facebook. Because when I do that, there are people who follow me who see that. If you go to, I take images from Facebook, exactly, no addition, no changes, and just post it on WhatsApp groups and people will respond. So I just want to again thank you. It was very helpful, especially because of some of the information members of Speak for My Community were receiving during the election. The information that I provided that you made available to me and all the public was very helpful. So thank you so much. I just want to recognize you for that.
No, thank you. And also I want to recognize the board because you did help us with the allocation of more funds to do more outreach, especially when it comes to the media campaign. And one thing that I was proud as the team that we did was the voting information component of our sample ballot was available in French, Korean, Chinese, and Amharic. And that also gave a presence because a lot of people I saw in the communities were like, wait a second, I saw a sample ballot in Amharic. I'm like, oh yeah, the voting information, not the ballot part component, but at least the voting information. And they asked, are we gonna get that in 2026? I was like,
Good question.
yeah, and that's like, good question, right? Yeah,
So let me ask a question that follows up on that. I agree with everything Daniel said about, except for the fact that I don't think it's that hard to make us look good. But you were kind to mention our role in getting the extra resources, but the extra resources we got was on a one-time basis. And so my question for you is are those extra resources needed again? And if you were us and you wanted to help, but you also don't want to ask for things if we don't need it. In other words, I want to pick our spots. How would you handle that? Because obviously a gubernatorial primary is not a presidential general. But on the other hand, there's a lot of things we were able to do with those extra resources that, you know, that we'd like to be able to do.
Yeah. I think the effort put forth to secure those funding was able to allow us to penetrate into the community. It's a very diverse community. I definitely hope that moving forward, when we go to 2026, we could get that allocation of those funds, because then you're limited to what we could do, what we did in 2024. Because then I'm going to have to dilute what we did in 2024, and we will go back to what we did in 2022. So hence the sample, the voter information portion of the voter information sample ballot, we won't have that, right? Because then we have a lot of advertising space as it pertains to, let's say, bilingual poll workers. We need Republican poll workers, mail-in ballots, you know, tips to avoid to vote, you know, provisional. So if we don't have the same amount of funding, I'm going to have to dilute what we did in 2024 to back to what we did in 2026. And I think having that information in different languages and amplifying some of the same, like targeting message with the need for Republican poll workers and the need for individuals to return their mail-in ballots and the tips that they need to sign and make sure that, you know, you signed a voter oath, et cetera, and how to leverage the drop boxes and deadlines. So my desire is that we continue with that pie, right? That we were able to secure. But if we don't, then I will need to look at the bang for our buck. Well, you know, and then I will make those recommendations.
And let me say that when you refer to our county as being diverse, we're diverse in many ways you know, not just in terms of our minority populations, but just in terms of how different the up county is from the down county. And I particularly appreciated, and I know that if Ami was feeling better, she'd be telling you this herself, the efforts that you made in working with the Republican Party.
I wanted, that was.
I'm stealing Diane's thunder, which makes it even better. But let me.
Say it anyway.
But feel free, but let me say it first, that I know that from what I've heard, and I don't think they were just saying it to me, that it was very much appreciated. Now, obviously, we still want to do more.
Yes.
And we, you know, at the very least would like to get to the point where our election worker profile reflects our voter profile. Although obviously we'd like to do better than that. Yeah, but I know that you put a lot of effort into that. I know those extra resources helped, and I appreciate that. I also know that in the course of this year's election, there was a lot more collaboration and coordination between the staff and the board. And there were board members' involvement in a number of outreach activities. And I think that we did a good job of working off each other in a good way to make the most of our resources, because I think all of us on the board are more than willing to, you know, to help however we can. And then the other thing I was just going to say is, as we were talking about before, is I still think, even though I agree with Daniel that it's amazing to see all the things that we're doing, there's still plenty of additional things to do. And you and I have talked about it before. trying to find a way to have fewer provisional ballots, trying to educate people about the different methods of voting so that they can pick one and stick with it, or at least pick one and be happy with it. I mean, there's a number of things that we still would like to get across to the voters, and I look forward to working with you on how to do that and figuring out what resources are required, and I'm certainly willing to help push for that.
No, most definitely.
So anyway, I think now I should turn to Diane.
I just want to agree with what he said. Yeah, I didn't want to let it go by, especially with your work with the women's Republican groups. I can't imagine where you get the energy to do all that, but it was so appreciated. And I had so many comments from just countless different groups and the women in the groups. So thank you.
No, my pleasure. And I do want to commend the team, the staff, because I know I bother and I pick different team members in the building, including board members, Boris himself, but also the team members like Naina and Greg, because they're out and about in the community. We have members from the voter registration, from IT, that would come and kind of help, pick up the slack when I was unable to be at a particular location. So it's a team effort. Unfortunately, you'll see my face in a lot of locations, but it's a team effort all around. So, but once again, please, and the public, don't wait until 2026. Outreach is every day. So if there's an event, it's getting warmer. Emails, contacts, reach out. And like I said, I don't care if it's 5 or 5,000 individuals at an event. All we need is a table and 2 chairs.
And I'll just add for the Democrats who are listening that we're focused on Republicans because we need to have a bipartisan team. And that's an area where we have been traditionally lacking, and that we are working on. But obviously, we welcome Republicans, Democrats, unaffiliated voters, members of other parties. We welcome all to work as election workers, regardless of their party affiliation, and we will do our best to reach out to try and make sure that we have, balanced teams everywhere.
Definitely. Thank you.
Anything else about either Boris or Gilberto's presentations? Okay. So, thank you. All right, next, now, I gather that that is the outreach update, or no, that's not the outreach update. That is no, we're not up to the outreach update yet. I've got a few things left here. So the next thing is the old business, is the continuation of the review of the election administration improvement proposals, which I helpfully forwarded to you guys, I believe, last evening. Yesterday afternoon, after forwarding it to you guys in December. I am going to give you a brief update on the legislative items on this list. Then I'm going to go to the administrative items, which are the ones that we said we were going to pick up with. I don't think they're horribly controversial, but whatever the case, I obviously it's up to the board as to whether they're controversial or not. I will say that for number one, about the postmark provision, we did not submit legislation relating to the postmark provision, but we did have I thought a very useful meeting. Boris and Sandy and Ami and I met with the postmaster at the Shady Grove post office to educate him about our postmark needs. And it sounds like he is going to be talking to people on his staff. And I won't bore you with everything we learned about the Postal Service, but we learned quite a bit. A lot of mail from all over Montgomery County goes through that facility. A lot of mail from Prince George's County goes through that facility. But whatever the case, they now understand that adding a postmark somewhere other than where the ballot was mailed is a problem, not a help. And I'm hoping that will make a difference. As far as number two, to change the board's 2 substitute members to regular members, I have sponsors lined up. But I was informed that it is considered a local bill. And for it to be, since it's considered a local bill, there's a local bill schedule. So we will be getting that bill introduced for the next legislative session with an effective date, hopefully, of June 1st of 26, so that it's in time for the ballot canvass of the 2026 primary. It would be just for Montgomery County, and the idea would be that our substitute members would become full members of the board. And as I've said, I don't think there's any good reason to treat the substitute members differently. And these are all things that the board supported. As far as number 3, about moving the June 2026 primary election date, that bill has been introduced by Senator Kagan in the Senate and Delegate Wilkins in the House, who are, if you're going to have an election bill, those are the sponsors that you want. Boris has done an outstanding job of spreading the news to colleagues in other jurisdictions in Maryland, as well as to the Montgomery County Public Schools and Montgomery County Recreation Department. And as I would have expected, once they know about this, that they are all very favorably disposed, because we're literally talking about a 1-week difference, and we're only talking about a 1-week difference only when there are 5 Tuesdays in June, with 2026 being one of those days. So I am looking forward to testifying on that legislation, but and maybe asking the board to reaffirm its support of that provision. Number 4, I did not do anything with, other than mention it to people. I believe that there is legislation that a Republican state senator from another county is introducing that may be relevant to this point, but I have not made any effort to change the law on my own, and will kind of defer to his process on that. I think that we should obviously continue to do what we can to help our numbers, but I think achieving parity has never been possible probably in my lifetime, but doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to make our numbers as good as we can. Number 5, which is to allow voters who vote the wrong party ballot in the primary to have their ballots accepted in part so that they can vote for Board of Education. That is has been introduced in both the House and the Senate. In the Senate by Senator Kagan, in the House by Delegate Roberson of Prince George's County, who's a new member of the House Ways and Means Committee. I managed to meet him the other day. Seems like a nice person. Again, I may ask board members about that to endorse the bills specifically, but the thought is still very much the same. It's all voters, if they are registered voters of any party affiliation, are eligible to vote for Board of Education, and this would allow them to do so. Number 6 and number 7, which were the most controversial at our board last time, I am not pursuing at this time. Wanted to get more information before pursuing it, so I am not pushing those bills this year, and I will save any discussion for that for another time, because I know we all want to get out of here some time today. Number 8, again, I have suggested to the state that they, well, you'll see, I'm not pursuing a law change at this point for number 8, although it might be something that can get slipped in somewhere because it's strictly a technical change. We're already sending out oaths to people that are not on the back of the envelope and especially for the web delivery ballots. And number 9, also decided to wait on because the political situation is such that it may not be the best time to propose new things to be studied. I'll just put it in that form. And number 10, we already did, which was explaining the practical effect of ranked choice voting, which even ranked choice proponents have been happy to learn about. And I will say, I'm going to announce this to the board right now, that I am hoping to have a nonpartisan and bipartisan conversation about ranked choice voting at our March meeting. And when I say a nonpartisan and bipartisan conversation, what I mean by that is I want at least all of us at this table to understand it as thoroughly as we can as the discussion is going on. And I want to understand the actual pros and cons, not necessarily the spin. There is spin from both proponents and opponents that I have observed, and I'm still kind of figuring out how to make sure that that conversation is the kind of conversation I'm talking about. And I'm happy to talk to colleagues if you have suggestions of people who really know this stuff. But again, I'm not talking about speculation. I'm talking about actually understanding the mechanics and what it would mean for us, and also have the advocates understand the mechanics and what it would mean for us. Okay, so that's all the legislative items on this list. I want to go ahead to the administration improvement proposals. Number one, we've already done, which is addressing the postmark issue when the post office is adding a postmark at a receiving post office. In December, we said, let's meet with the postmaster as soon as possible. And I believe was it the second week in January? It was early January was when we met with the postmaster. And thank you to Boris for setting up that meeting and for doing it promptly. I don't know whether Ami is able, I know she's on, but I know that she wasn't feeling well. So I don't know if she's going to be able to participate in this conversation. But number two was something that she pushed for, not necessarily the exact words, but the idea of renaming the sample ballot something other than sample ballot to avoid confusion that voters have between the sample ballot and the ballot. Because we had a number of people who seemed to be really concerned over issues relating to the sample ballot that basically is a mailing of information from us to voters and is not an actual ballot. There is no sample ballot that gets cast in any election in Montgomery County. But there are ballots that get, lots of ballots that get,
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
How long has that,
How long have we called it a sample ballot?
yes, and has it been distributed in Montgomery County?
I don't
I'm
know.
concerned about confusion, not having that arrive. I mean, we've seen just simple changes.
Well, did you
like-
see what the proposal is to call it?
I did,
Because it would include the word sample ballot in it, because I agree with you.
or maybe
yeah.
start with sample ballot and then add the new part.
No, I guess the question is, how does one get across the idea? I mean, the sample ballot is a small portion of that mail. It's kind of the inside portion. And it is literally the picture of the ballot, and we are one of the few people that sends out sample ballots without any suggestions for how people vote. Because most sample ballots that the partisans send out, sometimes the names are larger, some names are removed, some names are circled. We're sending just a straight sample ballot. On the other hand, when we had issues with the sample ballot, as you may recall, there was a lot of anxiety that was provoked simply by the sample ballot. And how it was addressed, what it said, what it didn't say, etc. So
You're saying there were people who really thought it was a real ballot?
I think there are people who got exercised over it enough that they were treating it like it was a real ballot. That, for example, oh, Ami, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, no, I'm here. I had my hand up. It doesn't
Oh, I'm
show.
sorry, I missed that. Go ahead.
No, my point is that it causes confusion. And it gets confused with the sample ballots that the Democrats put out. It gets confused with the sample ballot that the Republicans put out, et cetera, et cetera. When I was in Boston prior to the election, I noted that what the Massachusetts boards of election put out is called a voter information package. And it seems to me that that is much more descriptive of what is actually contained within the document itself. It contains things like where to vote, how to vote, et cetera, that has nothing to do with the ballot itself. And so I would include the sample ballot and I would include it on the list of contents in a table of contents, like we have a table of contents today. But I would call it a voter information package.
Now, I will say, Ami, that the voter, there are lots of voter information packages. And I guess, and I would, in an ideal world, I would want to distinguish ours from others.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Call
but
it the-
heck, just hang on 1 second. Unfortunately, even if you add the word official in front of it, there's lots of party ballots that call themselves official as well. Even in primaries, there've been candidates who called their ballots the official sample ballot, the official party sample ballot, which of course is not really the case either. So there's a balance to be struck here, but I understand what you're saying. You're saying that if we call it a sample ballot, it's really, we're talking about 1 page out of a multi-page document that has lots of information that's beyond just the ballot. And if we call it a voter information package, you know, that's why my suggestion was to say that it includes a sample ballot, but not necessarily to merely call it a to merely call it a voter information package because of concern that people would miss the idea. I will also say that the state law, I believe, calls it a specimen ballot.
Oh, my God.
And I don't know how people feel about that terminology, but
That's sketchy.
is
That's-
it?
I think that's sketchy.
Okay, I'm gonna let Ami finish, then I'm gonna call on Daniel, and then Diane. Go ahead. Ami, do you have more?
No, I was just gonna say, I would not object to including the words sample ballot or specimen ballot in the title. But to say just sample ballot means some people will throw it away and not look for the other important things it contains, like where are the drop boxes, where are the voting sites, what are the early voting schedules, etc.
Okay, Daniel.
So, Mr. President, as we know, and many who would be watching, know that we've historically called it a sample ballot, but because we know that it contains more than just a sample ballot. I believe we should, because the confusion, in my opinion, as someone who has served in the Democratic Central Committee, is the word ballot, the word sample. So everything we're discussing right now has to do with what causes confusion. So my thinking is it's more of an election preview guide, right? So if some of our partners and amazing organizations haven't used the word voter guide, that's what probably would have used. But in my thinking, I think anything that has to do with the election preview kind of encapsulate everything that's within. That's just my opinion.
Let me,
I've got a suggestion.
yeah, go ahead, Diane.
How about official voting information from the Montgomery County Board of Elections, period?
Of course.
Just very briefly, any proposal that the board comes up with, we still have to test it on the front page. We have to test bilingual text that goes on it.
You have to test it?
Yeah, how does it look on the page, on the front
Oh,
page?
got it.
The
Yes.
size, the font,
Yeah, oh, no, understood.
bilingual and everything, so it's I'm just saying, if board cannot lock a proposal,
Right,
it's still too early, we have a year.
right. No, I was about to go there. I was about to suggest that we not spend the next hour figuring out what to call it. But that we, figure out who wants to be part of the process of working with each other and the staff. By that, let's say who wants to be part of that. I mean, a subcommittee of the board, not the board. to come up with a proposal to, because I think we all see what the issue is. I think we also want voters to know, have some idea of what they're getting. If Daniel and Diane can find something between them, there's I like the idea of official voting information, but I also like the idea of saying election preview, because that's what it is. But we also want people to have a sense as to what they're, we want them to be able to find what they need to find.
Yes.
And we put a lot of information into this document. And we rely on it a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So anything we can do that encourages people to use it, I think is in our interest. So I'm not gonna ask for volunteers right now, but I'm gonna suggest that I get volunteers to try and come up with a proposal for what to call it, and we not spend the next hour trying to figure it out at this table.
Excellent.
Eminently wise suggestion.
Thank you. I want that in writing now. I want that in writing. And you understand that I'm gonna then use it by saying eminently wise.
You heard it here first.
Yes, thank you, Al. Okay, let's, yeah, oh, there's lots more. Diane, clearly, you've only gotten it twice from me. So, I guess this is what it takes to get you to read it.
I have nothing to eat today. I may end up leaving
Oh,
early.
okay. All right. So the next one is consider setting up personalized email and text reminders of polling places, mail-in ballots, sign up for some kind of a vote alert. Text messages to remind our voters who are voting on election day to go to their own polling place. Because we have a lot of voters who don't. A message like that could also remind voters that if they received a mail-in ballot, that they can fill it out and bring it to the polls. These are things that will be in our sample ballot, election preview, official voter information, whatever we call it. But we have voters who may not read it, but who might read a text that they received from us that says, don't forget, if you're voting on election day, go to your polling place.
Here it is.
Here it is,
Kind of like Alert Montgomery.
yes. I have no idea whether this is possible, expensive, not expensive.
Expensive.
But to me, the ideal would be to find a way to have personalized information for voters that tells them what they need to do. Again, all I'm suggesting is that we consider this. But I want to get a sense of the board. Is this something that you want to consider? Obviously, everything depends on how it's implemented. And how much it costs and all. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff. But with how many provisional ballots did we have?
27,000.
Okay, with 27,000 provisional ballots, we have to do something and a huge portion of them being people who try to vote out of precinct on election day.
Mhm.
I think we need to do something. This is the something that I think. And again, many of these proposals are just things we all talked about informally, individually. Do you want me to proceed? Why don't I just proceed and if people don't have specifics for right now? Number 4, if there's a way to let people know about lines at election day polling places, basically, this relates to the problem in Silver Spring and in Gaithersburg, where there are long lines and there are people there who think that it's early voting and they can, and they're waiting in a line, not realizing that if they go to their own polling place, they'll have an easy time. They can walk in and walk out. And what I've been doing and what some others have been doing at these polling places is pulling out my phone and looking up people's voter information on my phone. And I will say that I'm lucky that most voters seem to accept that I'm an official doing this as opposed to a random person. If you do it enough times, the state board will ask you to find all the stairs, all the buses, all the motorcycles in the picture, you know, et cetera. I'm just trying to find out if there's some way in the places where we had lots of provisional ballots to do it officially so that we don't have people wait in line for an hour and then find out they're in the wrong place. You know, I would rather that they find out early on, you know, that if they go down the street or across town or whatever, that they can save themselves a lot of time. Number 5 is just that we know that there are those peaks that Boris has shown us for a variety of activities. For example, you know, there are times before election day that we're doing voter registration, mail-in canvass, mailing of mail-in ballots after the contractor is no longer doing it, and early voting and preparation for early voting all at the same time. Because there is that period of time, you know, the voter registration deadline is about 3 weeks before the election. Early canvass starts right around that time. Sometimes it'll be a day before, a day after, but it's basically in that same time frame. Early voting is, you know, about a week or so later. You know, so a lot of these things are happening one after the other. So, and I don't know, again, what is the, you know, everything has a cost, but that time is, if voters are not getting their ballots, and some voters are saying they're not, that's not necessarily on us. It may be on the state, it may be on the contractor, it may be on the voter. But anything we can do to help move things along. The effort to receive ballots faster, we're already doing that a lot because of our mail sorting equipment. The web delivered ballots cannot go in the mail sorting equipment. So anything we can do that will discourage mail-in ballot voters from going to vote in person. One of those things is making sure that their ballots are marked as received as soon as possible. Now, we cannot necessarily do that if they send it to us at the last minute and then go to vote the next day. But anything we can do to make that faster. Anything we can do to limit the number of untimely mail-in ballots. You saw that we have a huge number of them. It looks like we're at about 700. I think that would be encouraging the use of drop boxes because they close and we don't have the issue of the untimely ballots in that instance. We already are encouraging people to act earlier, but anything we can do, giving out some of our stats on rejected ballots to remind people. I personally like the idea of having a video or something online that explains how postmarks work, because you'd be surprised how many people do not understand. And I'm talking not only about young people, I'm talking about older people too, who think that they can hand the envelope to their mail carrier on election day and it'll be postmarked on election day, and, you know, want them to know that. Number 8, I'm less certain about, but the idea there is that when Ami and I went through the provisional rejections, sometimes, you know, election judges are rejecting ballots and we don't see any of the data that they see or don't see. So it's a question of whether we want to be presented with that information.
Documentation that establishes someone's not eligible?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And then number 9, anything we can do to encourage early voting during the weekends or other underutilized times. Because we have a 15-year pattern of less voting on the weekends. I realize that we can't necessarily, you know, if people don't want to vote on the weekends, they don't want to vote on the weekends. Some people may want to vote during the week. But most of them don't want to wait in line. Anything that we, you know, anything further that we can do. I'm going to stop there before I get to the ones that are for state action. I want to just get a sense of the board as to your thoughts on these ideas. Like I said, many of them came from you all, but quite frankly, it's been a while. I don't remember what came from whom. Any thoughts that people want to share?
Mr. President,
Kina.
in efforts to help us going forward, figure out the best way to take action on these items. can we also identify other stakeholders in this? Particularly to the last one, ways to encourage early voting during weekends. I can imagine that as someone who takes a bus, it might be more challenging to go to some places versus others. I recognize that we obviously choose places that best support those who take public transportation, but as we know, on the weekends, those times may change.
Yep.
So that would be a stakeholder in this conversation. I think it might be helpful to do that with the other items as well.
Yes, well, we also, I'm happy to get that, and I encourage all of you to identify those who you think would be stakeholders for these. The other thing about encouraging early voting during weekends is, which I agree, for public transportation, that's a lot harder. But it may be a lot of other organizations who would join us in the effort to basically, it may very well be that if we provide enough information about when it's busy and when it's not, that that a lot of the public will adapt. We have procrastinators, and I'm frequently one of them, that will do things at the last minute, no matter how much time they have. But we definitely have people who would, if they knew that they could avoid, an hour wait, would adjust their behavior. And so, but I'm happy to, not do this in a vacuum. What I'm not happy to do is to take a long period of time to the point that we say, oh, it's too late for this election, let's do it for the next one. Since we are only in February before an election, that it's in 2026, but it's in June of 2026. So, it'll be upon us before we know it. So
Right now, there's a way to go ahead and check the wait time for early voting.
there is, but it's an instant check. It's not a planning check. In other words, it is a look right now and we will tell you what it is right now. But we also can tell you with almost certainty that if you wait until the last 2 hours on the last day, you're gonna have a line.
That's true.
And if you go on the first hour of the first day, you'll have a line. And if you go on Saturday and Sunday, you won't. Or if you go to these 5 places, you won't. Because, Boris's slide that showed the wait times, there were probably, 5 or 6 early voting sites that weren't on there for any day.
Yeah.
So if you go to one of those 5 or 6 places, you don't have an issue. Now, we can just say, in the 2024 election, if you went to one of these places, you never waited longer than, but I mean, I don't know exactly.
It does change though. Potomac wasn't on that list, and it's been on that list before.
Oh, yeah.
Potomac, I believe, Potomac wasn't on the list at all.
I didn't see it.
Not even
They
for,
didn't have-
not even for day 8.
Nope, they didn't have long lines.
Okay. Well,
Again, caveat is everyone who had the wait times over 20 minutes is on the list. So if it was
Understood.
15, sorry.
No.
if it's not
A 15-minute wait is not even worth talking about. Okay, well, I mean, but anyway, that's the thought. Okay, let me go on to the rest of the list. These are items that are designed for state action. And again, many of them came from comments that our board members made at Canvas in an offhand sort of way. First one is explain more prominently in the instructions for the web delivered printed home ballots that the oath is a separate sheet of paper that must be signed. Second one is when you print those ballots, print the oath out first as opposed to last, so that when people pick up the pile of papers, it's on the top and gets people's attention. The next one is the ballot graphic that you all may remember looks like it's in graphite gray. And instead make it in black.
That's my personal
In order to.
recommendation.
And then for those who don't respond to graphics, the next one is add an instruction to the ballot to use black ink. So we'll get it to them in both
I
both
like that.
pictures and words. Number 14, please do not sign this ballot. Write that at the bottom of the ballot.
Even if you made a mistake.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, there was space there, at least for the last ballot.
Yeah.
Number 15, I do remember where this one came from. I believe this one came from Ami. The Dropbox slot currently says insert here, but it could just say push here because you actually don't just insert it. You actually have to, there's a door there. You have to.
And as, as one who
Yeah.
got stymied by Dropbox, just testing it because I do vote in person. I subscribe to
Boy,
That was good.
ProPublica needs to cover that.
No point intended.
Yeah, okay, so the truth is now out. So Diane is pushing open our Dropboxes, but not using them. Yeah,
If you bust, please figure it
I
out.
will say that there are a number of voters, and Diane is not alone in this category, who and we actually saw this. I saw this when we were doing TV interviews in front of the Dropbox, where literally the voters would come up to the Dropbox and they couldn't figure out how to do it, and either the reporter or I or one of us would say, here's what you do. So it is not it's not a minor matter. I mean, you know, it's really kind of surprising, but for whatever reason, I mean, first it was the lock, and the lock doesn't actually lock the Dropbox, it locks it open. Because there's a flap there that you lock it closed, and that's what closes it at 8 o'clock on the last day, you know, on election day. But and then our staff came up with ways to cover the lock. And that helped some, but anyway, whatever the case, I do think that push here versus insert here, would help. Boris, you had something to say about that one?
Yeah, if we can just still recognize that Dropboxes were a preferred return method for the ballots, and the 85,000 people actually utilized them to return. So we have a problem, but it's not
No, we have-
preventing
Yeah.
people from participating in the election.
No.
85,000 people.
But we don't, but again, we don't know how many we would have otherwise. So,
Yeah.
especially now that we can advertise that Diane checks them out. So.
One by one.
Yeah, so that's good. Okay, number 16, and I've had conversations with the state about this, which is to remove the word deadline from the state election calendar when they're describing the 10th day after election day for sending our certified results to the state board. It's actually the first day we can do it. It's not the last day we can do it. And the state law very clearly indicates in other provisions that we can send it to them within 48 hours of when we finish, or on the 10th day, whichever is later. And we of course have, in my memory, and Kevin's memory, never finished on the 10th day. We came close in 2024 primary, we finished on the 11th day.
We could call it the impossible to meet deadline.
Yes, the impossible, right, exactly, the impossible to meet deadline. Number 17 goes back to our experience in 2022 and 2018, which is to expand the number of days for staff to prepare for a recount from 2 business days to 5 business days. Our board council has done an excellent job of working with the people who request recounts to try and get them to not request recounts on a schedule that we can't meet. But in reality, 2 days is not enough to prepare for a recount. Unless the request is made on a Friday and gives us a weekend, but then of course it kills the weekend. So anyway, so that is so as a suggestion. And then number 18 is to prepare a handout to inform some provisional ballot voters that their ballots are unlikely to be accepted, including out-of-state voters who attempt to vote in Maryland and should vote in their home state, and may be able to do so if we inform them that they need to do so, and voters who've already voted in person and had their ballots scanned but believe they made a mistake, which, as you guys know, cannot be corrected. Now, the reason why we're talking about a handout is because the reason why we don't tell voters these things is to try to prevent having arguments with voters at the polls. But on the other hand, if we don't tell them at all, we're getting what we discovered when we went through the rejected provisional ballots is we have voters who vote in DC come to Silver Spring.
People who live in Chicago.
Right.
I'm here to vote.
Right, exactly. And they vote and they don't realize that their vote may not be counted. In fact, likely won't be, especially if they live in a jurisdiction where it's due that day. it may not happen. So I would like, at least in a few instances, to be able to communicate to the voters that that's the case. We did have a voter who made a mistake, voted in person, and then was offered the opportunity to vote a provisional ballot after they made a mistake. And of course, we had to reject the provisional ballot because they had already voted. Now what the voters are told is, you guys would all be happy to know, it's up to the board. But it's not really up to the board because we don't have an option to allow people from out of state to vote, nor do we have an option to allow people who've already voted to send us a corrected ballot because we can't figure out which one is their uncorrected ballot. So I would, so this would be to find some way to communicate to some voters, preferably without having to train 200 and however many election judges to have these conversations. But have some way to let people know, yeah, I guess it's hypothetically possible that your ballot will be counted, but it's, you might be better off, doing something else. So I personally, and I know many of you, maybe all of you, feel like when we reject ballots, regardless of the number, it's very painful, especially if people are just misinformed. Especially if they're misinformed about things that we could have told them easily. So anyway, so that's the list. Is there anything on the list that people would like to take off the list? How about that? Let's start with that. And then if not, what I would say is that we don't have to decide now, but we probably should put together a group to work on appropriate implementation. I can communicate the ones to the state, or Boris can to the state and see what they say. And then I'm going to talk about legislation separately, but
I mean, the ones to the state look very specific and could be self-executing. We phrased it in that this is what we'd like you to do.
right, we can just write them a letter.
The first 9, I think,
Yeah.
are gonna probably take some time to refine them. These are more conceptual in nature.
That's a very good point. Well, what do you think? I mean, should we just send them a communication, send the state a communication on the ones for the state?
I think so.
And then, and as far as the first 9 go, I didn't hear great objection from anyone. I heard more discussion about the specifics. So if I can, I'm gonna ask if I can have kind of unanimous consent to consider the board to be in favor in concept and to kind of authorize us to start pursuing these. And obviously any specific changes, we're going to come back to the board, as appropriate anyway. Does that
Sounds good to
work
me.
for everyone? And I want to include in that what Kina suggested, which is that we want to hear from stakeholders on any of these suggestions. Now, these proposals have been, part of our meeting materials since December. But we also can do our own outreach, and perhaps Alberto, you can help with that in terms of making sure that the right people are informed about these things, and we get their suggestions. Okay, anything else about this list? And thank you for indulging me, because I know that it would have been really easy for us to postpone it a second time. But I really wanted to get started with that. Okay, let me get back to the agenda. And the next thing is the General Assembly session.
Is there more?
There is, because the General Assembly does things in addition to what we suggest. Shockingly enough. So I'd like to ask the board to consider reaffirming its support for 2 pieces of legislation and supporting a third. And then Boris, you can remind me if there's anything else we were going to bring up today, but I think that there were 3 of them. And if you saw my email from last night, this is what I'm want to discuss with you. So as far as the reaffirming, the chair will entertain a motion to support I'm looking for the bill numbers, but today, Sunday. Okay, so the chair will entertain a motion first to endorse House Bill 945 and Senate Bill 645, which would move the primary election day to the fourth Tuesday in June rather than the last Tuesday in June.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Mr. President.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? Again, in most Junes, those are the same day. But when it is when there are 5 Tuesdays in June, it would be on the fourth Tuesday in June. That will take it closer to the end of school, which will also mean that we're more likely to have rec centers available before they start summer camp, more likely to have schools available before they start summer construction, more likely to have election workers available before they start vacation. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. I don't know whether Ami is still on, but Alex did raise his hand, and I know that Ami is likely supportive, so,
Yeah,
oh, there she is.
I support.
Okay,
I'm gonna ignore my hand.
okay, we will ignore Alex's hand, but thank you, Alex, for your support regardless.
So David, just so it's clear for the record, it was moved by Daniel and it was seconded by Keene.
It was moved by Daniel, seconded by Keena, and the vote was unanimous
Okay.
to endorse Senate Bill 534, I'm sorry, Senate Bill 945. No, I have that backwards. House Bill 945, Senate Bill 645, to move the primary election date to the fourth Tuesday in June from the last Tuesday in June. Okay, now the chair will entertain a motion to support Senate Bill 543 and House Bill 839 to allow provisional ballots to count votes for Board of Education if they are otherwise rejected because of the voter's party affiliation. Now, I didn't phrase that exactly right, but basically the idea is if a voter is otherwise eligible to vote other than their party affiliation, and the party ballot that they voted is the only issue, that their vote for school board for Board of Education would still be counted. So it would be an accept in part rather than a reject in full. Is there a motion? March,
I move to accept full board endorsement of this bill.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Margie, seconded by Daniel. Again, to endorse Senate Bill 543, House Bill 839. Is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hands.
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? Okay, Diane is opposed, so it's 4-1. You supported this in December.
I don't think
No.
so.
Yes, you did.
We both argue against it?
No, you didn't. You argued against 2 other proposals. That was not one of them.
Really?
Yes.
Maybe we didn't get to it. Maybe I was, well, I oppose it now.
Okay.
It's like the ballot, you can't change it, right?
Okay, no, it's not like the ballot, and she can change it. I'm actually quite surprised.
I'm just
So
on principle against,
you're against open primaries, but this is not an open primary. This is a closed primary, and even in a closed primary, this just says that if you attempt to vote the wrong ballot, and of course, we sometimes have voters who think they're registered one way and are listed as registered a different way. We're just saying that their nonpartisan vote would count. It has nothing to do with an open primary.
For the Board of Elections.
For the Board of Education, the Board of
Education.
Education does not have a closed primary. The Board of Education has an open primary. In fact, the Board of Education has one primary of all voters.
That's okay. I'm not gonna change it. We can move on to the next one. Thank you.
Okay,
I'm evolving on it. I knew my vote was gonna change it.
okay. I just was gonna remind you that this was not a proposal that you opposed in December. Okay, so now the last one that I wanted to discuss today, and again, unless Boris reminds me that it's something that I had forgotten, is Senate Bill 534 and House Bill 586. And these are the bills that say that in order to get paid as an election judge, you have to serve and not in order to get paid for your training time, you have to serve. Now, they also have a provision that says that if you are eligible for SSL hours and pay, that you can receive both. Again, both of these provisions are designed to encourage service as an election judge. We believe, based on past experience, that essentially one provision will cover the cost of the other. And they're minuscule in both in both cases. But we have more than 200 people who took the training for the primary election, more than 200 people who took the training for the general election and did not serve. Sometimes that is no one's fault. Sometimes that is just, someone gets ill, whatever, but I think it's a bit much to ask to be paid for training for something you don't do.
I have a question. Oh,
Yes.
Alex was up first.
Alex, go ahead.
Mr. President, I had a question. Do we know generally whether to earn SSL credit, the student cannot be paid?
We know that there is a policy that says that the student cannot be paid, but a state law, I believe, would take priority over a policy.
So this would sort of elevate serving as an election judge above many other kinds of SSL hours.
It would. I believe it would. Well, it would open the door, because I don't think that it would be the last one. But the law would only apply to this particular form of service. I would say that we need election judges. And our younger judges have been among some of our most dedicated judges. I think this would be a way to encourage them. I will say that there are not many student judges who choose SSL hours over pay, because in order to be eligible for pay, you have to be 16, is it?
You have to be 16.
Many students have already earned their SSL hours before they're 16. So it's a relatively small circle for us.
If I may add,
Yes, of course.
for the 2024, we are talking about 44 students in the primary and 47 in the general.
Who picked SSL hours.
Who picked up SSL hours and otherwise would have been eligible to receive both money and SSL hours under this bill.
Oh, so there were some who chose, I want the SSL credit, but did not get paid, and others who just got
Just
paid.
picked up money. And we believe those who chose SSL hours were those that were short to meet their quota for the school. And what David mentioned, if you do the math for the election judges who trained but didn't serve versus election judges, kids who might be eligible to receive money, I think that we are negative $1,200 for the primary, positive $2,500 for the general. So it's literally wash every election cycle, every election 1,300 positive over election cycle itself.
Just, no,
Okay, my question was,
Can before we get to your question, is there a motion on this bill?
yes, Mr. President,
Yes,
I'll
Daniel.
move that we,
mine is on
oh,
this.
sorry,
The
good.
question is on.
I'm gonna come to your question,
Oh, okay.
but I wanted to get a motion on the table. Go ahead, Dave.
Mr. President, can I get the House Bill and Senate Bill?
It's-
586, House Bill 586.
Okay, on, Mr. President, on House Bill 586, I move that we,
It's House Bill 586 and Senate Bill 534.
Okay.
So you're moving that we endorse those bills.
endorse this bill, yeah.
Is there a second? All right, it's been moved by Daniel, seconded by Margie. Okay, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna call on Diane.
Absolutely.
Okay, Diane.
Yeah, just administrative almost question. Is there a time when, have we had the occasion to have somebody go through training, but we do not place them? In other words, everyone who goes through training and then wants to serve, we find them qualified and then they serve.
So I would be the happiest ever if we would have surplus of election judges.
That's what I thought the answer would be.
That's number one. Number two, even if we would have surplus of election judges, they would be on standby in case we need to dispatch them for the locations that judges might not show up, had to leave early. We had the longer lines than expected and stuff like that. Board will remember that we utilized everyone. In the last election, moving from one location to another or moving from the standby, that we had few available people who told us, I cannot serve in the morning, but maybe afternoon I'm available. So even count on them sending them to Borough Park to do the lines or something like that. So if that happens, people will be on the standby, they'll be eligible for a pay. But
Thank you.
on the standby.
Okay, further discussion on Daniel's motion. Daniel, do you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, Mr. President, I believe it's a win-win, as Boris and the staff has indicated, the fact that the universe is not as huge, but
Right.
the impacts they would make would be significant. Universe in terms of, the financial impact is really, as Boris said, minuscule. But
I like to believe for the board that $1,200 is the cost that we can bear in a fiscal year.
and
That's my take.
given that we're actually engaging young people who, as we see, definitely would, the numbers are growing. I think 10% is what that was shown in terms of the
Yeah.
numbers. To me, it's a win-win because it gets them engaged, and many of them, the fact that they don't have, it's not a either or proposition, it's a both and proposition. I think that's more of an incentive for them to do. So that's why I would ask all my colleagues to support my motion.
Okay, thank you, Daniel.
Sure.
Any other discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
Tina?
Yes, it's been my professional opinion that these types of actions, while they can be helpful, are not supremely helpful. Typically speaking, it's a matter of engagement, a matter of reaching out to those volunteers, either in real time over the course of at least 7 touch points, for them to actually turn into a fruitful moment, which is when they serve.
Yeah.
So for the record, while I will vote in favor of this, I do believe it's much more than just a financial opportunity for these people to actually make it to the point of serving.
Okay, absolutely. And let me say, we're endorsing the piece of legislation because it exists. It was not one that we proposed. But I view it that we are giving our recruiters and our outreach program one more thing that they can say to encourage people and get their attention.
Absolutely.
And that to me is way more important than and I'm not viewing it as this is not our only outreach program, thankfully. It's not even in the top 10, but I think that it will help.
Yes.
That's the way I view it. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Ani, are you on?
Yes,
Okay, it is unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Boris, was there anything else in the legislative category that you wanted to report on? He's been sending us periodically lists of the bills,
No, those are magnificent, by the way. Thank
you
you.
know.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Boris, for doing that. I don't have anything else on legislation. I know that the hour is getting late, so let's move on quickly. The next thing is the website update. Boris?
Could we dispense with that for this meeting?
I understand we have 10 minutes until 6. Boris, I'm guessing this is a quick update?
Quick update,
Quick update. Not many people looked at our website after the election.
after the election, our website going to normal numbers, so more next time.
Information's on our website.
Absolutely, it's under the board's document,
Okay,
so.
very good. Thank you. Is there more to say about outreach? Go ahead, Gilberto.
Just quickly, we are organizing our spring visits back to the high schools. Right now, we have about 25 confirmed outreach events until spring. We're adding new events daily. And once again, shout out to the public. If you know of an event, give us an email, call it, set up, and we will knock those pins down. Same with the board. If you hear any events, from HOA, nonprofit organization, academia, just let us know and we'll definitely engage.
Thank you, Alberto. Happy to do that. Okay, is there any new business? Okay, future actions from today's meeting. Okay,
DOJ.
I need to go ahead and reach out to John Marcos about, the DOJ letter or Forrest has to.
okay,
Was that?
were there?
Number
were
of
there-
ballots requested.
Yeah, there was a question about the BMD usage in other leisure polling places.
Yes, yes.
But the number of ballots also rejected, the total number of
Yeah,
ballots.
a total number of ballots rejected is the certification.
Yes.
On time.
Yes, yes, thank you. Very good. Were there any
So
other
three.
bits of information? We got a lot of information today. I'm sure that we'll also want more, but it was very helpful information that we received. Anything else that were future action items? Okay, approval of the minutes. We have the minutes from December 16th. I sent some very minor comments yesterday. Is there a motion on the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes.
Okay, Diane has moved that we accept the minutes as amended by my email last night. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, moved by Diane Dillon, seconded by Daniel Caroma. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Aye.
On this, okay, it is unanimous. Okay, future meetings. This is important for us to. Oh, and I have one more quick comment to make before we adjourn. As far as future meetings go, we are meeting today at kind of a halfway point to our March meeting. So we did not have a January meeting. We did not have another February meeting. Our next meeting is on March 17th. It is an in-person meeting here.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day, everyone, if you are so inclined, can wear green. I will not be serving green beer. But
the Firebirds might.
but yeah, yes, after the meeting is a different story. And we might need it after a discussion of ranked choice voting, but
Oh my God. No, we'll need it before.
but I'm hoping.
me to make a presentation on that,
Mr.
President.
Well, I'd like to talk with you about that. Maybe you're just the guy to do it. But anyway, and once again, we'll be back to our regular schedule for April, May, and June. Okay, so we're meeting on the third Mondays of April, May, and June. We will not be meeting in July, as we discussed by email. And our August meeting, instead of being the third Monday in August, will be the first Monday in August. So basically, our one meeting between our June meeting and our September meeting will be on August 4th. I just wanted to put that on the record. I think all of you knew that from before. I appreciate everybody's cooperation in that scheduling, and I really appreciate everybody's cooperation in today's event, which was great. The only other thing I was going to announce is that I received an email while we were meeting today from Michael Fletcher, who apparently had some confusion about the start time for our meeting. I responded by telling him that number one, that our meeting was announced for 2 o'clock on the board's website, and that number two, we had already discussed his written submission even in his absence, and that we were happy to have further discussions with him after he has a chance to hear our discussion, and that if he really wanted, he could talk to us at the end of today's meeting. He opted to review the conversation first and to reach out to us afterwards. So, and basically appreciated that we were as open to his input as we were. So anyway, but I wanted to let the board know, since you're going to see the emails exchanges back and forth, that I did answer during the course of our meeting. I will do everything I can to facilitate people's public comments, but I knew we had a long agenda today, and I knew we had already discussed his issue, and there'll be plenty of other opportunities to follow up with him. So anyway, and with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. Executive session.
Yes, the board needs to meet in executive session to consider a confidentiality voter request to ensure the privacy of those individuals making the request.
Okay, and I'm going to assure board members that this will be very fast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.